Walter, do we do a sound check? You can hear us?
I can hear you wonderfully. Can you hear me?
We can. Okay. Ready to go. Hello, this is Chuck Tironi, Reading's Conservation Administrator. This meeting will be conducted in person and remote format consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which further expands certain COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meeting until March 31st, 2025. Please note, not all items listed, in fact discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent by law. This agenda includes those matters which is be reasonably anticipated to be discussed at the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, which I'll get to. All material is available at the following links, which I'll provide as soon as I'm finished this script. And then Brian Bowe, the Conservation Commission Chair, will facilitate this meeting. Please note that there will be public comment period at the hearing. Each vote will be taken by roll call vote. We will begin with a roll call attendance. Brian, can please review the agenda and do the roll call attendance.
Okay, I'll review the agenda first. First item is Zero Cedar Swamp. This is a continuation.
Recording in progress.
Then there'll be the Town Forest Phase 5 cutting. This is opening a hearing on an RDA. Third is 29 Green Meadow Drive, which is opening a hearing on an RDA for that property. We'll then move on to a quick discussion on a minor plan change for 16 Beverly. Some conversation about violation notices, and then discussion items which are listed on the agenda. Having said that, I'll do the roll call, starting with Walter.
Walter Talbot, Commissioner, present.
Tony Rotalakis, Commissioner, present.
Martha Moore, Vice Chair, present.
Brian Bowe, Chair, present. So having said that, we can get right to our first hearing. Chuck, can you let in people from the applicants?
Sure, I see that Shona's here and Andrew's here. I'll let them in right away. Back to my screen.
No, he's not coming.
Okay, and Andrew. Okay, both of them have permission to turn on their video and unmute. Anyone else, Shona, that you would like us to bring into this meeting?
Yes, with us as well tonight is Jessica Wall of Anderson and Krieger. That's New England Power Company's attorney.
Sure. All set.
Okay, I haven't seen her show up yet.
I'm gonna put the link to the meeting permits in the chat right now.
Okay, so we're ready to go forward with this. So
Jessica raised her hand. Hold on one second. Jessica, can you speak? Is that might be the problem? I'm going to ask, I can just click on the ask on mute, but you have co-hosting permission, so you should be able to work all your controls.
Okay, hi everybody, good evening. Thank you for your time. I'll see
If you wouldn't mind giving me sharing permission.
Sure, you have that.
Great. Okay. All right. You know, okay, can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So just a background, and we'll do this briefly on the project. New England Power Company has a maintenance and replacement that includes replacement of existing wooden transmission line structures with substantially equivalent steel structures along a 17-mile-long right-of-way, electrical transmission right-of-way that goes between Tewksbury and Saugus. A portion of the right-of-way, I think it's about 1,000 or just over 1,000 linear feet, crosses through the town of Reading, right at the, within the Camp Curtis Guild, right within the borders of North Reading and Linfield. So it's kind of the very top or northeast corner of Reading. Work specifically in Reading includes the of one existing structure and replacement kind of not directly adjacent to the structure, but within about 50 feet or so with kind of a larger structure. So instead of having a direct embed 2-pole structure, this is a concrete foundation. So representing a bit of a loss of wetlands with the change in structure size. There's also construction matting, as the entire footprint of the project within Reading is within BVW. We're not in any other resource area with the exception of natural heritage habitat, but it's entirely BVW. Matting is going to come in from both sides to facilitate access to, I think it's about 6 different structures within kind of this larger wetland complex, kind of running through most of the project site. We do have some work pads associated, one with the removal of an existing structure, another with the removal of an existing structure on the town line with North Reading. The work pad is within Reading, and then the replacement with a new structure, this kind of larger diameter structure in between the two. The existing right-of-way is fairly large as you go down to the south. This is a smaller right-of-way. There's also a larger right-of-way with several other transmission lines south of the project. The cedar swamp is on the northern side of the easement, and the trees kind of on that northern side have grown to a point where they are kind of within the right-of-way and presenting a hazard to the transmission lines, a fall hazard, a hazard tree. New England Power does not have the rights to trim or remove any trees kind of on this northern edge. So they're proposing to realign the portion of the transmission line within this right-of-way to the south. That because they have easement rights, they have the ability to remove trees to the southern side of this right-of-way. The removal of trees is necessary to maintain the clearances between the edges of the right-of-way, the existing tree line on the sides, and that transmission line asset in the middle. This is a 345 kV line. It's a fairly large transmission line, so those clearances are especially important so that the trees kind of along those sidelines aren't falling on the lines and threatening kind of that reliability of this line. Tree removal is within the three towns within this larger wetland complex: North Reading, Reading, and Linfield. But we've got about 43,000 square feet plus or minus of tree removal, selective tree removal from this edge. Tree removal in this case will not consist of kind of a broad cut where it'll come through with machines and mow it all down. It's a selective removal of the trees that are directly a threat to the line, which is dependent on kind of that position within this outer edge, the species type, and the existing height of the tree. Some species go a little bit faster. Some are more prone to wind damage and falling over than others. So we've kind of given that 43,000 as an overall kind of capturing of the tree line, but it's going to be based more on the species there. Any questions kind of on that scope of work?
So you're saying you didn't count the trees. This is a estimate of what's out there, and most of this will happen in field work.
Yeah, so we did try to do an attempt to do an account, but the area is kind of large, and especially as you go toward the western end is flooded. So we took a number of different transects, collected the total number of trees that are would be potentially removed within an area, and came up with a number of about 550 trees altogether within this area. But again, that's a rough estimate based on kind of transects and the total number of trees.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that you didn't go out and mark the trees and take an accurate count.
And as I recall, after the cutting, you will give us an updated, accurate number?
Yes. Yes, so that was the proposal to work with the forestry team on which trees could be kept, which trees you can kind of top at the top, and they still maintain that clearance without the trees being removed entirely. Which trees could be turned into a snag tree, which is it's kind of a girdling of the tree so that it's still dead tree, provides wildlife habitat. So we had a couple of different arrangements for providing different habitat to keep some of the trees within this area. And then we count all the stumps immediately following the tree removal, so we'd have a very accurate count of what has and hasn't been removed.
Yeah, I have another question. Is everyone on the tree crew qualified to make those decisions as they're working their way through, or does someone go in first and mark out all the trees to be cut or to be saved? How is that process? It's more in the weeds, but I was just wondering how that works.
I believe on some past projects we've worked with the kind of the foreman or the National Grid forester to determine exactly which trees could be kept, which trees we'd be able to create these snag trees, and which one would be removed, and that would be a site visit prior to the the crews coming in for removal. But Andrew, if there's a different one, please feel free to answer.
Yeah, we would walk through with that lead forester. We would identify those trees individually, and then we'd be looking at, as Shona said, that edge line and those trees, and it would be an evaluation of, okay, this tree is leaning away from the right of way. It's a non-issue, non-hazard, so we'd be saving that one. We'd mark them individually, and then that would basically set the stage for them to come in and do the removals one by one. And at that time they would do the girdling, so it would be a pretty precise activity to ensure we save as many as possible.
So you're saying girdling, you're not talking about, so you're talking about cutting the bottom of the tree so it dies off later on. You're not talking about leaving a snag, right?
The snag tree is created through two phases, right? So they have to take the top of the tree, which would be presenting the conductor clearance concern. So you'd see the top of the tree cut, and then at the base, they would girdle around, which basically severs the bark, which brings the nutrients to the tree, and the tree would die, but it's left standing. And that's what over time is creating habitat. So as it dies, birds basically and bugs kind of creating cavities, and it's creating perches and so forth. So it would stay in that sense.
So am I stretching my understanding of what may happen out there to think that the National Grid people have read the order of conditions, or is Shona going to be out there with her understanding of what would have been approved to review as the process happens?
So the answer to that is probably a combination. So that initial walkthrough would be with myself or somebody who's very close to this project to be able to identify those trees, and then prior to the crews coming in to perform the work, they are all trained in the field. We call it environmental field issue training, where we go through all of the individual conditions. We would walk through kind of all of the flagging in the field to identify which trees are saved, which ones are removed, which are snag trees. So it's kind of that initial field walkthrough, and then followed by a training with all the field crews that would be in the field. And we'd likely have some oversight as well through environmental monitoring, because there are presently on the line environmental monitors that are monitoring the project for environmental compliance.
So is that National Grid's environmental monitors, or is that yourself, or is it? I don't know what the arrangement is with BSC, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, Chuck, it would be with BSC Group. Yep, for the duration of the project.
Okay, great.
Can you tell me briefly how you intend to mark the trees? Are you marking the ones to be cut or the ones not to be cut?
Typically, it's the ones not to be cut, and that's with a spray paint of different colors or different marks.
Yeah, Sean got it. Yep.
So that means the spray paint would continue to exist on the trees that were not to be cut.
Correct.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, so a note about the construction method as well. you know, as I had said, they're not coming through and just removing kind of everything within this strip. It is just the selective tree removal. So following the tree removal work, you will have the stumps, but you'll also have that understory retained, with the exception of where the construction matting kind of overlaps with the that edge of tree line.
Sure.
So the crews they'll put the, you know, this access roadway right on the edge of the line, and they'll work from that access roadway and either walk in or using equipment from that access road, they'll reach over to pick up the kind of those tree stumps. So you're not, or sorry, the tree limbs. So you're not driving over or cutting the, you know, that existing shrub underlayer, understory within this area.
So what kind of slash will you be intending to leave?
The any sort of trunks or limbs would be pulled out, you know, put on log trucks and removed from the site. There are occasions where kind of the branches and, you know, well, this work will be done in the winter, would be chipped and left on site, but they won't be chipped and left in piles within this wetland. It's more than likely that they'd be chipped and left on site kind of in an upland area outside of the town of Reading.
So there'll be.
Yeah, and in this case, oh, sorry, Brian, in this case,
Fine, go
the
ahead.
chipping would occur out of wetlands. So the material is taken outside of off the page to the right into the uplands. There's plenty of upland areas, so it'd be chipped or entirely hauled off site.
That was going to be my question. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? from-
Yeah, it's like, is that upland area in Reading?
No, it is not.
Okay, so that process area is outside of Reading. So if you're laying down chips, it's outside of Reading. Okay.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Then perhaps we can get to some more details.
Mhm.
I'm glad everybody on your, you asked a fine question. I assume that you was. Sean, are you finished or am I cutting you off?
Oh, no, I wanted to just talk through the scope. I do have additional material, walking
you.
through kind of all of the different, you know, mitigation, restoration type measures. So I've discussed kind of before in situ restoration and monitoring commitments. Where the wetland matting will come down, you know, we are obligated by a number of permitting, other permits, so the Section 401 permits, Section 404 permits, to monitor any areas where we've got wetland matting that's come down on top of wetlands, in order to ensure that you've reached kind of a 75% revegetation. So monitoring usually takes place over the course of at least one growing season. We'll have environmental scientists go out on a quarterly basis, observe the site, observe kind of the growing conditions, and then have a report that comes out with a photo log and observations of, you know, what species are there and what's revegetating. We do in situ restoration as well. So the way matting comes down is you're working off the leading edge of the matting. You know, machinery places the mat down directly on top of vegetation. Within a wetland, there's typically no need to kind of mow, you know, within these larger saturated wetlands, there's no need to mow down vegetation. They can place the matting directly on top of vegetation, unless you've got some thicker, you know, shrubs or saplings, which they will cut. But that matting comes down and comes out the same way, where they're pulling back the matting as they're going through, so that there's no machinery operating within the wetlands themselves. However, you know, when that matting is removed, the environmental compliance inspectors, wetland scientists will go out and inspect the footprint of where the mats have been in place to see if there's any you know, minor rutting that does occur from when vehicles travel over them. If there's any rutting observed, you know, collection of soils or a material that's fallen through the wetland matting, all of that extra material would be removed. If there's rutting, that would be restored using hand tools to kind of rake out the area. So there's restoration of the site and then monitoring as that vegetation kind of comes back throughout a growing season or so. I also wanted to mention the construction mats themselves. New England Power has an internal policy for invasive species control, and I believe we detailed some of this in one of the last communications to the commission, where as that matting is coming in, the contractor installing the matting has to certify that the mats are free of soil or plant debris in the attempt to stop spreading invasive species with the matting. So the contractor will have those mats certified clean, and as they're coming out of a wetland, again, they'll be inspected and cleaned off before they go into another wetland somewhere else on the site. One of the other kinds of monitoring mitigation type programs there are is we talked about in the last Conservation Commission hearing, was to do pre-construction and post-construction surveys of the right-of-way anywhere we do have those construction mats down or removal of vegetation along the sideline, to do a survey to document the existing invasive species. There are certainly within the right-of-way, the cleared portions right now of the right-of-way, we do know that there's very large Phragmites marsh, and within kind of that more transitional into the uplands area, there's quite a bit of buckthorn, whether glossary or European, I'm not sure. So the pre-construction invasive survey would kind of document the extent of those populations, the density, just to see what's kind of on the site now. And then we continue to do those invasive species monitoring reports for 2 to 3 years. On top of the monitoring, there is actually currently ongoing part of the overall vegetation management program with National Grid, an invasive species control program. And I'm actually going to let Andrew talk to that one, because I know he's been talking to the forestry crews a little bit.
Yeah, yep. Since our last meeting and then communication between sort of looking at what options we have to help address invasive species spread, our vegetation management program already integrates a herbicide cycle. So it is comprised of either a cut stump application or a foliar spray done of targeted species. And in this particular wetland, it would basically be targeting those buckthorn species. So it would help support and address the invasive species spread that I think the commission was concerned about. So to try and support sort of this activity and the invasive spread and our kind of long-term monitoring, we would do an application this coming spring following the vegetation, the tree removals, to address buckthorn plants that are present, European common, and then it also captures some other invasives, Russian olive, autumn olive, things of that type. It wouldn't be touching the Phragmites, but it's at least addressing invasive species that are present. I think that the commission was interested in trying to curb the spread. So that's kind of what we'd like to try to integrate as well as a part of the project.
Okay, I think Chuck has a question.
Yeah, it was for Shona. I was wondering, when you talked about where you're going to monitor for invasives, was that where the trees were cutting, or is that part of it also? So you talked about the mats, and when you move the mats, you're going to monitor that. But where you cut the trees, is that part of this monitoring also?
Yeah, that can be part of the monitoring as well. So if we were to do that, that pre-construction existing condition survey, we would do the same thing within that tree line as well.
Did you see in the understory as many invasives? I would assume not as many invasives out there, not as thick. It's just out in the sunlight where the mats are going to be dropped in. And I would think the commission is more concerned about that area, kind of turning into where the mats are, similar characteristics as where the mats are being laid down. So that was my thought on that. But you said you're monitoring that too, and that's great, because I think those safeguards would kick in, and that's where I would want them to kick in that spot. I mean, not lose any more ground is kind of what I'm thinking.
So where on the site are you considering that you might use herbicide, especially sprayed herbicide?
Within the currently maintained corridor and in this 20-foot additional clearing area. So if Shona goes back a slide. might help visually. So you can see the white and black line on the northern edge. So from there across the right of way to include the red dashed polygon where we would clear the trees or remove those trees.
So when you send out your crew, they have a map and a plan, and typically these maps and plans let them know where they can spray herbicide and what they could do in each area. I'm wondering if this is a change for this area, or this is continuing what's happened. Has this been approved, in other words? And I need to know if it needs to be approved also by Natural Heritage, Melanie Cheeseman, whoever, Missy Ann Merrill, for this application, and how that process works, if it's yes.
No, I mean, it's independent of the project. It's something that's already approved and done through Mass Department of Agricultural Resources through a yearly operation plan permit. So Natural Heritage is aware of the activity, and it's just it's a tool in our toolbox to mitigate the plants and the vegetation that is growing too tall and coming within the conductor clearance. So it's an activity that happens. The town is notified through letter, so they've already made that notification, and it's an activity we do on a cycle. So there's not a need to approve the activity. I'm just saying it can help support what the commission was concerned about with the spread of invasive species.
All right, so we're not looking for another letter of no take from Natural Heritage?
No.
Okay. Are you broadcast spraying? Are you backpack spraying? Are you cut and dab? What are we doing here? Are we, what is the process? And do you know what herbicide you're using, and does it have surfactant in it?
The two ways in which the application is applied is through a foliar spray. And I guess to go through what that would include, it's, a backpack with people kind of certified, and they're targeting the species as they are leafed out. They're spraying directly at that species. They don't apply that application if they're standing water. So they target times of year that would be, lacking standing water. So in this wetland complex, maybe on the side closest to Linfield, there's less standing water. They could do that kind of an application. As they proceed down, if there's standing water, that application isn't feasible. The cut stump treatment is the same concept. It's on the backpack with a person going plant by plant. They are cutting the invasive plant, and then they are dabbing the stalk of it. And what that is doing is it's drawing it down into the roots of that plant, and it's killing the plant. The applicators are all. Say that again, sorry.
I was wondering if they just use dye so they know where they went, and if someone went out to review, they could see. I know it doesn't last forever, but
right. No, great question. Yeah, the dabbing is typically coverage, and they're not bopping around and losing track of where they're at. So it's done pretty precisely.
yep. Yep. I guess and lost my train of thought. Can we get so what you're using, and if you could just name that, or maybe you're doing more than one, you have more than one herbicide that you use, you could let us know each one. So like in Reading, we usually, we've been running into approved by BSC, at Camp Curtis Gill, they use Garlon 3A, which is, I guess it was great. And I guess was here about that. So I don't know what you're using, but at least we'd like to see that.
Yeah, the chemical, the herbicide type, something I don't have hand tonight, but we could provide that. And then as far as like the Natural Heritage, sort of what they're operating under, we could provide that as well.
Okay. I'm done that. I'm done. Sorry.
You have additional slides?
Just a last slide is as an example of a project, a past project, kind of a similar removal of trees along the sideline. This is in Westboro, so you can see kind of the stumps in the foreground. This tree with the S on it and the flagging. This is a snag tree, so this is kind of what they look like when they're put in. You know, they remove the limbs or branches on the top, which do have that danger of falling into the line, and then just they leave that stump in place. So this is a photo taken while the line was in construction. This is a photo taken a few days ago it's taken from this substation looking down the line. So there's, a full kind of community at the edge consisting of both shrubs and this is that forested edge. So it does, you do see a lot of rebound, a lot of regrowth of stuff right along the edge there, including this kind of understory layer of shrubs and vegetation. It's just an example project of what this, what this could look like, where that matted access road is right on the edge, and then the crews just work off of this to get into that forested edge.
Okay. Are you done?
Yep,
Okay. I didn't want to cut you off again.
no worries.
All right, so then if we could speak to some of the issues that have arisen over the past few months. One of the bigger ones, of course, are the fees that have been talked about here. In the email that National Grid sent on September 10th, there was a breakdown of fees in different categories totaling the 58,000 and change that you actually showed on your last slide up here. And in that email, it was stated that the commission could shift the funds as it saw fit. So the place that we'd like to shift it is the category which is called the remainder of 24,750 for permit review. We'd like to shift that to a different account, a mitigation account that we could use to improve habitat for birds and what have you in the wildlife corridor in the northern part of Reading, of which.
And if you take this, if you stop sharing, I have a show. And amphibians, Brian.
Yeah, good point, certainly.
To show this area here, it's, as you'll notice, all these green areas are open space. The blue area up at the top is owned by the Reading Open Land Trust. And this blue area on the left, coming down screen, is actually a golf course. But this is what we call our wildlife corridor. Your project is in the upper northern corner. And the Ipswich River runs from screen left to right and has some tributaries down in through your project, but most of your project probably heads down to the Saugus River, which is down by 95, the highway, whatever, it's I-95, I think. So anyways, this is the area, and the Conservation Commission has a lot of land here. We have North and South Cedar Swamp. We have Bear Meadow. We have Fabian Marsh. We have Lobs Pond. We have the town forest. All of those areas are open space, either owned by the Conservation Commission or run by the town and their town forest committee. And those are the places we've identified that we would like to mitigate for any alteration that had to do, that displaced birds, that displaced amphibians. We just wanted to improve these areas, and that 24,750 seemed to be the one item that wasn't directly connected to our fees, and in a way seemed to be able to be lodged. And I think that we could also make an argument that it's not too much money for this project and what's happening out there. At least I hope we could. Anyways, that's the thought behind it. So I'll stop sharing the screen.
Do you have any thoughts on that before I move on to another item? On the
No,
idea.
I do not. No thoughts on it. Thank you, Brian.
Okay. So another item related to fees is the reduction in the square footage fee down to 50 cents per square foot from the amount we have in our bylaws. And so I'm bringing that up mostly to point out that we would need a vote tonight for the commission to approve that reduction. I don't anticipate that being an issue, but I wanted to point out that we needed a vote for that before we're done tonight. Let's see. I also want to reference the superseding order of conditions that was issued by DEP to Boston Gas relative to a project up in Lowell, the Lowell area modernization project, or words to that effect. And I'm referencing it because in reading it, there's a number of special conditions that we found pertinent and useful. And so we want to reference those in the order of conditions for this project. Now, there's a lot of special conditions in there. And so we're not looking at all of them. I will quickly read the list of the ones that we either want to take.
You reference it. They know. Just give the file number. You're good.
Sure. Okay, fine. Let me see. File number is.
Want me to do it? 206-0804.
Okay. So that's the DEP file.
DEP superseding order 206-0804. Andrew Cole has his hand up.
Sorry, yeah, Brian and Chuck, while I have the superseding order of conditions and the special conditions, it is important to know what special conditions you're interested in applying to the project, because the comparison of our project and that Lowell area gas modernization project, there are some differences. So I just want to be confident
We
and
have.
or understand which ones they are.
I don't think the commission's looked at it close enough to understand what they want to do, but obviously the commission is wise enough and savvy enough to understand which ones fit and which ones don't with this order. There was a lot of similarities, but there also were not, obviously this is in some ways a very different project. But for instance, there is something in there about monitoring, and you brought up monitoring, and I think that would be interesting to look at. But we do have to take most of our information from this meeting and from our review of your project, but getting the language right might be important. So if you wanted to know what we would do, we would have to take the time to go through it, I guess, is the best I can say.
Sure. Would the commission be willing to provide a draft of the conditions?
You mean when?
Well, I guess it sounds like you're looking at the special conditions, which, they're up to 70. And again, that I realize that the commission, while reading these, will interpret sort of what's applicable to our project. But my concern is some of the conditions.
Yeah, I was thinking you were looking for something tonight. Clearly that wasn't going to happen. And
Nope,
just
nope.
from the amount of times we put in so far, There'll be a number of them that we want to take whole cloth, so to speak, and others where we would modify it, recognizing the differences between the two projects. But yes, we will provide that.
So since that's me, that's pretty much ready.
Get the Chuck,
You know,
that,
if so I don't know where this is going tonight. Okay, so let's say it's not closed, we leave it open. Our next meeting is November 13th. You would probably receive it basically a week before that meeting. So that's all I can.
all right. So perhaps we should vote on the reduction of the fee, and something else you want to cover first.
Let's nail down the 24,000. So, Andrew, the commission wants to modify the fee schedule. Does National Grid agree to that change?
Does it
So-
keep the total at the amount that we provided as our mitigation? And it's
Yeah.
just a reallocation?
Absolutely. So I
Yep,
know your
then,
council's here. Our council is not. Do we need a letter? I'm asking Jessica Wall that, do we need a letter from National Grid to memorialize that? Or is it good enough to have this verbal agreement?
Sure. So thank you for the time, and I can add some clarification. So I have had the chance to speak to town council several times about the project, which I appreciate the opportunity. And we did talk about the fee schedule. And, you know, National Grid's position is that the fee amount that's listed there, which is, I think, approximately 58,000, we're happy to, you know, write a single check to the town for that amount. And, you know, where the town sees fit to allocate that is entirely up to them. So I don't think it's necessary to have a breakdown of where money is going in order, at least from the National Grid side, in order to reach agreement here. But if the town is proposing to allocate the funds as you've described, then I don't think there's any objection from National Grid.
Good, thank you.
And so, yeah, that's fine. You want to write one check. I'm just thinking about what they are. As a matter of fact.
And sorry, just to
Oh, you
add
can just
a
say-
clarification, I'm sorry, just to add one clarification. I don't think that we need further correspondence. I sent an email to town council basically saying a shorter version of what I just said a couple of days ago. So she has that.
Yeah. And we heard from Andrew Cole that it was agreeable to do that change as long as it didn't change the total. That's what I heard. So is that all correct and on the record?
Yes, yep, that's correct.
Okay, so that's fine. So usually you take the vote when so you would vote for the reduction. So they want an amendment to the fee. So we're gonna vote everything all at once, right? So we're gonna vote for the fee reduction. We're gonna vote to rework the fees, but keeping it at 58,750. That's incorporated in it. Blah, 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 blah. And so that all happens at one time. So if we close tonight, you would vote on those things, but you don't need to vote, but you need to vote reducing the fees first before you vote to issue, okay?
Issue,
So it doesn't have to happen now.
and not close, but issue.
You need to close first,
Right, I'm saying, yeah, you know,
then you need to do
Agreeing with
all the
you.
paperwork in between that
Right.
we just discussed, and then you would issue.
okay, so then, are there any other questions on the commission before we vote on whether to close or not?
Well, hold on, I think there's another question out there. Andrew, you want to review and Walter Talbot, sorry, Walt.
Yeah, I didn't see a hand, Walter, sorry.
Why don't you go now, Walt? No.
Yeah, my question would be, within the town, Do we know the money's gonna come to us or does it get filtered somewhere else?
We've
If
had
they
those,
write it, if they write a general check to the town.
we've had those internal discussions with town council and assistant town manager and town manager. They understand it. If it is at all possible, it will happen. I'm not saying that doesn't include having to go to town meeting to have the money appropriated to the Conservation Commission. But they're supporting us receiving this amount of money for mitigation. And what the problem is, and I think I've told the National Grid team this, Reading is not in control of their bylaw fees. They go into the general fund. A lot of towns I've worked in have, and it's a big deal because that's where most of the money comes in. We don't, it goes into the general fund. We're just in control through statute. The fees that come in through the state half, and we get half of those fees. But to answer your question, we have support within the town for that. And we just wanted to make sure that National Grid was okay with it. And then we can try to work through the town process. So it's a lot of steps, but hopefully we get there. But National Grid doesn't seem to be the ones that are in the way, if you understand that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, can I ask a question? I was wondering if we could get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation.
Absolutely. That was on my list. Yeah. Did you hear that? And yeah, they're both shaking their head. That would be great to get it sooner rather than later because some of that stuff would have to be incorporated into the order of conditions. Now, Andrew, back to my question. I'm wondering if you want to close tonight or if you want me to draft the order of conditions between now and the 13th. And then typically we close an issue on the same night and you'll review it and we'll have to discuss it live, you know.
Yeah, my only fear in closing without the draft conditions is if a condition isn't something we can apply.
Yeah, we don't want to.
Yeah.
Right, that would be my concern.
So give us permission to continue. I don't think, is there anything, other questions? Any questions from the audience? I mean, I'm kind of like taking over, but let's get this going.
Is
Yeah.
there a way to, I'm sorry, is there a way to vote on the reduction of fees and those types of items without closing, or am I mistaken?
No, I think the idea,
We want to close first.
right, so it was discussed is to get through the drafting of the order of conditions. You
Yeah.
guys would get it, we would get it, and we would all review it live at the next meeting.
The commission is amendable to reducing the fees. You're just waiting for a vote, so that's all.
Yeah.
And if you want to push off the close, if you don't want to ask us to close tonight, then you're not going to get that vote either. So with that, and go through to find out if there's anybody watching tonight that might want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay.
All right, so out there in public land, is there anybody who has any questions? If you do, just
Reaction
hit the
button.
reaction button, raise your hand, and we should see it. See anybody?
Anyone here tonight who would like to say something? Okay,
Okay, good.
back to the commission.
Well,
Andrew, do we have your permission? I'm just sorry, I just really want to just get this rolling. Do we have your permission to continue to November 13th, which is our next meeting? November 13th. November 13th, yep, it is.
Andrew, did you hear that question?
I did, yeah, sorry, I thought the Reading hearings were the 1st and 3rd,
Second and
but if it's
fourth.
the 3rd, 2nd and 4th, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm good with that, continuance.
Okay,
Okay, in that case, we should, can we have a motion then to continue this to November 13th?
So moved.
second.
This is Tony, I second.
Okay, Walter, want to start the voting?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Your time.
Thank you very much.
See you in November.
Moving right along.
And you can be quiet now.
Had enough,
Okay.
have enough TV time.
Yes. So the next hearing is the Town Forest Phase 5 cutting. I'll read the blurb. Open a public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Christopher Cole, Department of Public Works Director and Town Forest Committee under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 13140 and/or Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes Phase 4. Is that correct? Because the heading says Phase 5. Which one's
Phase
correct?
4.
Phase 4. Phase 4 of the dead tree cutting of all hazard trees in the treatment area on approximately 5.1 acres of land. Portions of the work are within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and 200-foot riverfront. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, and on the Conservation Division page under Project by Year. This is off Stroud Ave, Assessors Map 43, 49, Lot 37, 43, 49, 1, Map 55, Lot 1, File Number 2024-7. Bill, I presume you would like to take us through this.
Yes. And just introduce yourself. I really have to do name and address for the record.
Okay, yes, I'm Bill Sullivan, Chair of the town. Pull up my slides there, check it, appreciate that.
No, I should be prepared, I know.
You were busy talking.
First, thank you all for this opportunity to come speak to you. This is now the fourth time we've done this, so this is becoming semi-routine.
What was that?
I find it on my email, if that's easier.
Yeah, I'm not.
What do you think, Bill? How's it going so far?
I think my laptop is freaking out. Let me just see if it comes in a second.
Okay. Is it because it's a PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's the PowerPoint.
I have a laptop with that one.
Want to set it up? You got your laptop here?
Need an HDMI cable?
Here, just connected and. So you can go one in the back of this one. Now here we are doing IT stuff. I'm just hoping this will just turn on. Let me see if, yeah. Let me try. Let me try one more time with this. know that this is not gonna work, so we're gonna go to the next thing. Can you, Matt, can you sign into this meeting? From the,
Help me to remember to close it.
Do I need to, or can I just plug this into this?
yeah, let's see what happens when you pull that. And let Walter know, Walter will let us know if we're good to go.
Well, guess we can do it without pictures.
Can you sign into the meeting?
Sure, sure.
Here's
Yeah.
credentials right there.
Okay. All right. I'll plug you back in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're gonna do like your remote.
Yep.
You know, hold on a second. Did we have this on the? Let me go crazy. Let's go. Let's go here. You're gonna have to plug us back in, but
Okay.
Can you hit cancel or something like that?
I'm gonna have to cancel the meeting because we turned into the IT department.
So we can come back tomorrow and do this.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Oh, you sent it to me late, so we don't have this on the website. I thought it would be on the website.
Yeah, the plans are, not the presentation. The plans are, not a presentation.
You're gonna have to sign into the meeting and get us that way. Did nothing.
Yay.
There you go.
Still asking you to answer that question.
How are we doing with everybody at home? Walter, can you see us?
I can see the meeting. I don't see anything else.
Yeah, we're just gonna have,
You need to let me in.
yeah. I think this is the best we can do is just do it this way.
No, that's fine. Then that's actually, in some ways, it's better because I can just do it here.
All right, so there you are, and, turn off, you know, all that.
So I should be able to.
Tony, that material you asked for is on the website. And you're absolutely going to review the order of conditions. Everyone is.
Okay.
Walter, how are we looking on, at home?
I can see it. Reading Town Forest established 1930.
Awesome. Okay,
Back in business. All right,
okay,
Korea's coming up here.
good. Okay, here we go. So we all set? All right.
Good.
Again, thanks for the opportunity to come in to talk to you about. Yeah, the phase 4 of the debt-free removal program, and, you know, The first three, I think, have gone pretty well, and it's been really, to be able to work with you all, it's been great. I think we've had a good collaboration. I think we've been very successful in seeing real results. Yeah, process. So,
Work that way.
Sorry.
No, it's my fault. This was, I dropped the stuff in IT last week because I was having problems. And I checked it at my desk and it all worked out fine, but I come here and it says that the PowerPoint won't open up. So I know our next hearing, 29 Green Meadow, they'll be doing their own presentation, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, this is still giving me problems.
Okay. Now I can share them.
Walter, can you see that? Well, never mind.
We could do it. I could, hey,
No, I got it. I got it.
see you try it on that fancy computer of yours.
There we go.
Never mind.
Now we're
You
set.
good to go?
Now we're good. Sorry about that. Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, so, in review, the photo, in the photo, what you see there, the green trees are white pines and the dead ones are red pines. As we all know, but as the climate's warming, we've been having problems with not just in Reading, but really across the state. They're not native to Massachusetts, and so the result of the warmer climate, they're getting stressed by, red pine, the fungus and insects, and they're all dying. So if they're not dead already, then they will be shortly. So we need to remove them. Everybody, gets hurt, fire. So this shows the program as it's been carried out to date and where we hope to go. So the first phase was January 2020. Those are the yellow areas. The light blue was February 2022. And then November 2022 are the purple. The areas that we're talking about tonight are shown as 5, 12, and 13 in orange. And so that we're hoping will be the last major phase. There will be some, isolated pockets maybe here and there. But actually, you know what, I'm gonna go back. See the gray area 11? That's an area that we talked about. I know we did a sidewalk out there with some of you. And we decided because it's so isolated, there's not, a maintained trail there. We're just gonna leave that be and let nature take its course.
That's the one you guys closed, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So we did 4.5 acres under phase 1, 4.5 in phase 2. Phase 3 was 4.8 acres. And, all this work has been, we've worked very closely, of course, with DPW, and they did all the bidding and managed the projects. During this time period, we've had a number of scout projects. The scouts have planted hundreds of trees in a number of different areas, and we're fully aware that there's three big parts to this work. There's the removal of dead trees. There's control of invasives because, you know, we're all fully aware that by allowing sun to get to the understory, you know, the invasives are there and they're opportunists and they will take over if we don't act on them. And we have been doing that and that will continue. But then replanting is the third. So next phase, it's areas 5, 12, and 13. That's 5.1 acres. And again, it should be, you know, the last major phase. The forest cutting plan, which is part of the work prepared by Phil Benjamin. I think most of you have met. He's been our forester for a very long time. DCR approved the forest cutting plan in September, and now it's with you all for your consideration. So this phase 4 will continue the work that we've been doing over the last 5 years or so. And first 3 phases taken care of 13.8 acres. We've done 4 phases of invasive plant control. The last one, the biggest one was last November, $44,000. And we will be going to funding for town meeting for 2 things, both for this phase 4 tree cutting, but also we're going to be requesting $100,000 invasive plant control. So, you know, we're making a real effort to pull this whole program together. This, I mean, I don't necessarily need to read all this. I just wanted to point out to you the difference between the prior 3 phases. And this was right out of the forest cutting plan that talks about how, you know, previously we just took out whole trees, but there are a number of areas where we're going to be leaving snags. For the you know, portions that remain standing will serve as snags, enhancing the opportunity for those species of wildlife that use snags for feeding, nesting, roosting. And so that's something that's new. And then also what is different too, what's referred to as the forest type 2, that area is referring to area 5, which is, you know, the Pine Ridge Trail, which is that narrow esker that really doesn't provide for equipment access. And we've talked about this when we've been out in the field, is that those trees will be dropped parallel to the slope and in contact with the ground so that they will decompose into the ground. An additional side benefit, we've had some situations where we've cleared some slope and it has been a magnet for mountain biking. And so these trees will discourage that.
Bill, are we going to ask questions at the end or no?
If you have a question now, you might as well get to it. As long as you-
Sure. Bill, when you drop the trees, they're going to be supported by their limbs and they're not really going to be touching the ground. What's the process for getting them closer to the ground? Because you said you wanted to make sure that they're as close.
Yeah, that will be a requirement that that they have to limb. The thing with these is that they're so brittle, so they're dead. And so those pine limbs, which already are not particularly strong, I'm fully expecting that they will drop right to the ground.
Yeah.
Where they don't, they'll be required to get them in contact with it.
And what's that height that we're trying to get them below? If, so if they started to stack up 5 feet, that's.
Oh, yeah.
If it's, so you want to have it, whether 30 inches or 40 inches?
I mean, we don't want them to fall on top of each other. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I walk out there to review this project and I see a stack that's 4 foot high, you know, the trees have fallen over each other or it's supported by its limbs in its way up, then I'll know that that's incorrect and I should call it out. So what's that height that we want to get this material down to the forest floor?
It should be touching the ground. I mean, the limbs, I mean, not the limbs, the trunk should be on the ground.
Okay.
That's what we're measuring against.
So if they cross over each other, someone's got to get them in there and work that.
Yes.
Cut that.
If they have to cut them into, you know, sections to get them in contact with the
Okay.
ground. That's,
So I want to follow up on that for a second. So you expecting there to be enough trees that these lengthwise, these sideways trees are going to be right next to each other and you're going to have almost like a corduroy slope, or how many trees are getting cut there?
in this area. I couldn't give you a number.
I don't remember it looking very dense as far as the blue spots that we saw, so perhaps that won't be an issue.
Yeah, it's not gonna be continuous, certainly.
Yeah. I don't like it. I'm just gonna add something. I don't think they're being dropped in an area where people are walking. So the trail's still gonna be clear, but it's just whatever's on the side, on either side of the trail is where this stacking of,
I understand.
Area
I
that's
wasn't
going to happen.
thinking there was a trail. I was just imagining walking along the trail and looking down and seeing all these horizontal logs, so.
it is going to be a shock. Did Phil tell you how long that may be there before it starts to rot away?
It's certainly gonna be years, but the fact that they're red pines for one, and that they're dead for another, will accelerate the process.
Yeah, if we're lucky, the buckthorn will cover it up in a couple of weeks. Sorry.
What are you gonna do with them?
Sorry.
So that brings us to our request for for the approval of this work and removing the dead trees. We got a letter from the fire department, reiterating their support for this from a fire standpoint. We've replanted in areas 2, 3, 4, 7, and 10, and this is going to continue. You may recall that we had a consultant come in to do an inventory of where the invasive plants were, and their mapping kind of divided it by the trails and the access roads. So the work that was done last November and then this spring was to address all of the trails. Recognizing that this is not just a one and done, but for this first treatment, which is the most important, that's been done on all the trails. Reason why we're going to be asking for $100,000 for the town meeting is to finish up the rest of it. Again, the first treatment of it all. And that'll be primarily around the access roads, which there's a lot of buckthorn on the access road. So
Absolutely.
and so that's we're hopeful to get approval for that. So anyway, request a negative determination of applicability and approval of phase 4 study plan.
Okay.
Tony?
I have a question.
Commission, yes, go ahead.
How much of the work is going to occur within wetland buffer zones?
I would say 5. I would say half or just more than half. Area 13, and part of the reason that we're putting some of the snags at the bottom of the slopes is because it gets into the, close to the wetland. And so there was really, from a safety standpoint, a lot of this is driven by safety. We don't want dead trees falling on people. The snags, if they fall, when they fall, they're not going to be a risk to the public. So, but that much of that is in the buffer. 5, area 5 along that, the Pine Ridge Trail. That's down the bottom of the slope. I know that gets wet.
Are you clearing that whole slope?
Yes,
Is there a,
with some snags left.
is there a line coming up from the wetland where you're not working, like that 25-foot ZNB? That's all going to be snags. And when you top them, the material that comes off the top is not going to go towards the wetland. It's going to go out in this direction, away from the wetland.
That can certainly be a condition.
Okay,
I think that should be a condition.
so you're okay with only topping? Tony, is this where you were going?
Well, actually, let's think about this. Since they're along the Pine Ridge Trail, that's all going to be done with chainsaws.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as, they have pretty good control.
How are they going to top those dead trees if it's all chainsaw?
They're going to climb. I asked
Really?
them, we had the logger out. That's how they're going to do it.
That's interesting.
So the wetlands are not delineated. But we could have a condition that whatever, 10 feet, 25 feet, anything 25 feet and closer is topped. And
You finish your sentence.
25 feet is topped, and any of the debris that comes off of that would be up gradient from that area, from the 25-foot line.
The hard part is promising how, when it's topped, how it's gonna drop when they're using a chainsaw.
So, Martha, I know you have a question, if I can just jump in for a second. What about the possibility of the ones nearer the wetland not being topped because it's easier to control the fall of the whole tree and do snags and what have you further up the slope away from the water, so it's not as urgent exactly where the top piece falls?
So why I was doing that discussion was because I don't want any material in the wetland, and if everything could fall upslope, that would be great, but it maybe a combination of both would work. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I would just.
I'm a true believer that we don't have to figure it out. We just tell them what we want. So,
Okay, so there's a thought.
yeah.
It's up to you guys to figure out how to keep them out of the pieces out of the,
My turn.
yes.
In the forest cutting plan that was in the packet, it specifically says some of the red pines marked for removal have been marked at a height indicating that the tree will be topped and not felled. These particularly marked red pines are either within the 50-foot filter strips present in the project or scattered along some of the steeply sloped eskers. So it sounds like they're talking about topping everything within 50 feet of the wetland, not 25.
Hmm.
And that's in the forest cutting plan. And it says.
They're certainly getting
topped
closer.
By hand cutting or with use of a long boom with a cutter head on a harvester parked on the adjoining carriage road. So that's what I saw that is relevant to that discussion.
And that was consistent with that condition that was required by DCR. And
I think some of the areas and some of those descriptions don't fit exactly in my understanding of that area. So again, we should make conditions based on protecting the wetland resource area and let them decide how they're going to deal with this. I mean, that didn't say people are going to climb,
No.
and Bill was saying people are going to climb. So there's already been a change.
Said hand cutting.
Yeah.
Hand cutting could be climbing. Yeah, but when we were on our site visit, we did notice that there were maybe around the bottom of area 13, there were some trees that were like 5 feet from the wetland.
Mhm.
So, you know, and they were marked with blue spots, but I was not understanding the key to what was a blue spot for felling and what was a blue spot for topping.
so a blue spot, usually there's a blue spot at the base and then one about, 5-6 feet up. That's an indication of cutting.
Mhm.
And then if they're being topped, there was a mark up high.
Mark is higher up on the top.
Correct.
So then what Martha pointed out is worth looking at again, because there definitely were blue spots going right down to the water. You know where on the bench trail, and then it drops off and runs along the shore?
Yes.
Right along that slope, there were some trees with a blue spot down very close to the water. So that doesn't seem to match the key.
Well, I mean, the idea with the snags is that I'm not sure that they're necessarily all gonna be snagged down low. Some of them, like some around area 13, they're gonna leave the whole tree because it's down very low. And then as they come up the slope, some would be snags and some would be cut.
Okay, so some of the red pines marked of removal have been marked. at a height indicating the tree will be topped.
Correct.
And those trees that are being topped are within the 50-foot area. Got it. So it's not that every tree in the
Correct.
50-foot area will be topped,
Correct.
just some of them.
Yes.
And the
Okay.
trees will be cut with laborers with chainsaws standing on the ground. There aren't gonna be
Oh, well,
trucks driven
only-
with bucket rigs.
No, only the one with on the Pine Ridge Trail, that will be the case. On the others, on areas 12 and 13, that will be with equipment. With the long arm.
With the long arm, but you're not gonna have a heavy, my concern is soil compaction. I'm not gonna be driving out with a heavy truck into soft soils and compacting it. You're either gonna be sending people out there with chainsaws, standing on the ground, cutting them, or you'll be reaching with a long armed.
Right, and so what they did, like on area 12, that's the yellow trail. That one, they won't be able to get the piece of equipment because it's a nice wide bench. And they'll be able to drive right up to it, and they'll leave a few, here and there snags, and 20% or something like that we talked about. And then the rest of it will all come out, and all of those trees will come out. That's all gonna be mechanical. 13, that's gonna be more of a combination, they'll use the equipment up, like on the ridge, because they can drive it up there, which they've done in other places, and then,
So how wide is that vehicle again? 10 feet, 12 feet?
sorry,
How wide is that vehicle?
about 10 feet. And that's the one that they've used kind of all around and all of,
This is the one with the long arm?
yes.
And
Also just the time of year in terms of that. So.
Right, the socks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can you repeat so that that gets in the microphone?
Yes, so the other, to address the concern about soft compaction, thank you for bringing that up, but yeah, it'll be done when the soil is hard or frozen. We did it in 2022 in November. Soils were very hard, and then other times we did it in January, it was hard. That kind of prevents that.
And have you seen any impacts from compacted soil? Previously cut areas, okay.
No, even in area 3, which was done a few years ago. That was initially, it was a kind of a different process, a different piece of equipment. And even that, the slash was higher than the first, in the third contract, but it has, in the meantime, it has broken down. There's really no indication of equipment.
Tony, what do you need if there is compacted soil? You want them to backblade it? You want them to shovel it out? I mean, obviously, it's big machines going through areas that are just kind of fluffy, right?
I mean, well, the first concern is rutting,
Yeah.
right? So if there's any rutting, fill that in. The second concern would be is if heavy equipment is going in there and it's compacting it, that it's going to take years for something to grow and you'll be able to see that track going into the woods, which may in turn invite.
Fix for that, because those can just be conditions.
Well, the long arm boom is a good start.
Don't go in there.
You're right, within the buffer zone.
How long is that long arm boom?
Well, we can't guarantee who a contract is going to be. So, different contractors have different pieces of equipment, but, the last time they were in.
So you want no
I'm more, the closer you get to the wetland, I'm more concerned. The farther away you.
mechanical machinery within the buffer zone, reach in from there, or none closer than,
Well, we have to have the equipment in the buffer zone.
yeah, no closer than 50 feet?
Closer than 50 feet or 40 feet.
If, I don't even know what a typical boom reaches out, 35 feet? You're pretty close at that, if they can manage that.
There's also matting you might be able to consider, but I don't want to make this too complicated and add a whole lot of cost either.
And I'm certainly, so we know for a fact they shouldn't be in the 25-foot ZNV, so you're at least 25 feet away. And now we're just discussing the 50 for another 25 feet.
We won't be able to get the job done if it's 50 feet. Can't do it.
Yeah.
If we can't get within 50 feet of BBW.
50 feet?
Is that what you were just proposing?
No, we know that you can't get within 25 feet of the resource area or the wetland. And that seems to be fine, right? Because you could reach in with that.
If you look at, the southern area, southern end of area 13, where there were a couple of red pines on the other side of the road on the southern end that have some blue spots on. Them. So they are going to be on the road, on the fire road, reaching to it.
Yeah.
So that equipment is definitely going to be within 25 feet. The equipment is going to reach into, because these dead trees are in the wetland. Their feet are wet.
Okay, so what I would suggest then is if there is compaction and in the next growing season, if things visibly aren't growing from where the vehicle was, then you have to go back and agitate the soil, go with a shovel and loosen it up a little bit and do some hand plantings. My concern is I don't want to make a new trail.
Right. Now, a good example would be what we did area 1, which is, where the stone fire, the stone chimney is along the.
Yes. Yeah.
So up on that slope, we call that area 1. That was it's a trail, the red trail, and the equipment went up onto it. Or you could definitely see that there had been equipment there when it was done. You don't see that now.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure that we can't necessarily guarantee that there will be, leave no trace. This is construction. And
No, I understand that, but I don't want to create a new, permanent or long-term
Absolutely, yeah.
disturbance. So maybe a condition could be after 2 years or 3 years, if you can still see,
I don't
very
think,
obvious
I
impact.
don't think they're going out there. First off, the contractor should do it. So it should be immediate. So if there's something out there, Brian's been out there a lot. I don't know if you can still do that, but that kind of review needs to happen and then tell the contractor right away. So I think we should have a no-go zone, and I think that's the 25 foot. So you can't get any closer than the 25 foot. You can reach into the 25 foot. That's not a.
Oh, okay. So you're not driving
You have
it.
to stop at about the 25 foot, all right? So that could be the 35 foot if you wanted to. I think the boom might be 20 feet.
It's not going to work.
Why?
So I could see if you said you can't get the equipment in the resource area. 100%. No one's proposing that. But the equipment is going to have to get close to the edge in some circumstances.
Well, if it's on the road, that's not an issue. You mentioned the road, so we're not concerned about the road.
But even some of the trails to really do all the work that we need to do.
Well, I think if you're on a trail also,
I'm not concerned about a trail.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about if you're driving off trail. and-
kind of forest where you're kind of working your way in,
So,
Pine Ridge Trail, let's say if you worked your way down the bottom, let's say they could drive it and they work their way down towards the pond at the bottom. They have to stay 25 feet away with the mechanical equipment. They could reach in that last 25 feet, but they can't get any closer. And we're talking about having a backblading condition so that they loosen up the soil and aerate it as they're leaving and make sure that their ruts are not left in the soil, although, ruts sometimes are beneficial. Right?
I've seen vernal pools develop out of ruts.
But it also, it captures things as it's going down. It's, you always see like an eroded side of a hill. And then they kind of make the ruts in it, they kind of grade it out and they leave it rough. Every one of those little pockets has more grass in it than the high spot, because it's caught certain things as it comes down through each rainstorm. But I'm okay, and we did this before. One of the trails was really roughed up and it was fixed by backblading and fixing. It didn't seem to be an issue.
Okay, I think that would be fair to say, if there are any ruts that, the ruts need to be addressed. That's not a problem at all. But I'm a little uncomfortable saying you can't get any piece of equipment within 25 feet of the resource.
But we're only talking the wheels, right? So you can reach in.
No, absolutely.
So that's still a problem?
Well, because it depends on, how far they need to reach from that point.
So which,
And again, what type of-
which area do you think that constraint is?
I think area 13, I think that's going to be a problem. I think that in order to be able to get down, so if you're on,
Can you put the map back up?
yes,
Right, so if you're facing the kiosk and the trail goes up the face of the ridge. So how would you propose getting something up that ridge? The problem I have is the glare right where his hand is.
Yeah, Walter, we see you. Do you want to ask your question now? We're putting this up?
Yeah, you're talking about area 13. There's also trees in area 12 that are within the resource area or close to.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that was my next question, is how you can get there too.
Just an FYI.
Can't share anymore. Lose.
I don't think so. Let me check. No, you still have co-host permissions.
For some reason.
So, area 13, do you have, something to see? Can you pass that over to Tony? I think at some point we gotta get back to, paper plans and,
Okay.
no,
Okay,
That's the area.
area 13,
Okay.
area
here we go.
5 and area 12.
Scale is.
There, okay. So see on area 13, the part that sort of crosses the road. That's the part that,
Mhm.
that's on the road, but then even up. So heading north from that road, right where the numbers 13 are.
Yeah, it looks like you're going, 13 looks like it's
It's on that,
it's on a wetland,
the white trail.
right?
Yeah, it's on the white trail, yeah. But then it goes down the slopes.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be red pine growing in the wetland. Is there red pine? Because that figure looks like this.
Well, but certainly within 25 feet of the road, yeah, absolutely,
And we saw some within 5-10 feet.
yeah.
Okay.
And on the south side of the road, that limit of 13, they're right there, they're in the wetland.
And
Yeah, but you're standing there on the road.
yeah, so,
you could
right,
Reach out and
Right, right.
grab
So
them.
that one I'm not worried about.
Yeah.
What I am concerned about is the rest of 13, right where the numbers 1 and 3 are, on whether they'll, if the equipment can't get closer than 25 feet, I'm not sure they're gonna be able to get all the trees that are.
So I know we're kind of caught on this, but on a related issue for 12. How were they approached it to get to the trees they want to cut up towards the top, up near where the benches are?
Yep, so most likely, they will approach from the northern end of 12, and then kind of work their way down.
So down near the watering hole and go up the face of the ridge? Go up the
Right,
side of the ridge.
I think that what they'll do is, yeah, you know what, with the dam, the beaver dam, it's,
Yeah.
so then where the yellow trail comes, they'll go up that, because it's a fairly mild grade to go up that, and they'll follow.
Oh. Okay, you have the building with your mural. All right. And the trail goes up to the left.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the other end of that. The building with the mural is on the southern end of
Right.
13.
And so they won't be going up that face.
I suspect they'll be going down that face from the northern end of,
So that means they're gonna be going up from the second watering hole. And there's test pipes out there and everything.
yes.
All right, so they're gonna be going up that face.
It seems to be that when we walked it with the log, that,
So when we walked it, there were definitely some places where we saw a tree right in the middle of the trail. And we said, how are they gonna get around this, or is this one extra one they're gonna have to take that? There truly wasn't a 10, call it 12-foot wide, so there's a margin.
And that happens. That's something, they even talk about that Bill did. That there are times when, to be able to get to the rest of the trees, they have to take a tree that,
Yes.
maybe isn't a dead red pine. That can happen. And that's happened in the first 3 phases. But that's, they minimize that to the best of their ability.
Yeah, and because I think it's gonna be the same issue on 5. Same thing, I don't see a clear path to get to the top of the ridge in order to be able to reach.
But equipment, you can't. Area 5 that's the area that's gonna be done by hand. For that exact reason.
So they won't need to drive a vehicle up the Pine Ridge Trail.
Correct.
Right, and then not taking the logs out, which is our second question, was how would the transporter get?
Yeah, there's really no way to do it.
Now, we noticed along the Pine Ridge Trail in Area 5, there were trees right along the trail with poison ivy vines on them that did not seem to have blue spots, but they were clearly dead red pines. So would those be still taken down because they're within the corners of the zone? They didn't actually mark every.
There are
single tree?
there are some areas, and I'm not sure that that's one of them, but where it's indicated by, 3 slashes,
Yeah,
that marks the limits. And so everything within those limits is coming out.
okay, everything within those limits,
Right.
yeah, all right, yeah, I think that's the one of them, because that's where we first saw the 3 stripes, and we're saying, are they taking out this tree with 3 stripes on it, but not these other trees just beyond? And the answer is that 3 stripes is a limit.
Right.
And are there some trees with 3 stripes that will be left standing because they are not red pines and therefore not dead, but they got their 3 stripes just because they're marking the corner?
I was with Phil when he was doing the marking, and my recollection was the trees with the 3 stripes are coming out, and that he put them on the dead red pines.
Okay, because we definitely
some
saw
that were
some trees
not-
that were not
Not,
red. They were oaks or maples, but they had 3 stripes
it's
on them.
possible, was it in Area 5 or one of the other areas, do you recall?
My memory is Area 5 because that's the first one we went
That's the
to.
first one we went to.
And that's where we were looking at these striped trees and saying, why are they cutting down this red maple?
Mhm.
Now, it was not a very healthy red maple. It had broken off its leader and had side branches, but it was still not a pine.
Yeah.
So that would be a question for Phil
Sure.
is, the ones marked with 3 stripes as the corners, are they all coming out or are they just marking the corners?
I'll get clarification.
And my other question about the markings, you have said that the spots that are waist high are trees that are coming out and the spots that are higher are the trees that are getting snagged.
Right.
Some of them seemed to have a longer spot rather than a round spot. Is that relevant at all, or is that just artifact of how he spray painted? Like it was an oval rather than a dot.
Oh, I think that was just an artifact.
Or actually, one case it was a comma.
Okay. All right, but it was height, not shape of the paint.
It's height that.
Okay.
It's
All right.
nice.
Okay, and you also mentioned that the Boy Scouts have planted hundreds of trees, and we looked at the area not far from the fire circle where there are hundreds of cages.
Yep.
And we found 2 spruces and 2 tulip trees that still had leaves or needles, and pretty much nothing else had any evidence that they are growing. Is there any plan to replant the things that didn't survive our very dry summer?
So that's the last time I had checked, which was a while ago, there was a much higher survival than that. It was about 50%. Which is, for planting those little saplings, that's pretty good. I think that one thing I did notice was that even those that had survived, some of them, the stem looked dead, but there were new shoots coming out from root.
Mhm.
So I think what will be a better indication will be in the spring,
Right.
that it may be that they have gone dormant as the ones with the dead stems did, but we're still had enough life in the root to be able to throw up a new shoot.
Yeah. So after the spring, when we see what leaves out,
Correct.
do you have a plan for what to do to replace the ones that don't survive the winter?
I think we're just gonna have to see what the survival rate is. I think that if they were all gone, that would be a different story than if we got half. If we get about 50% survival, I think that we would.
And if you get 50% survival, at what point do you go out and remove the cages off the saplings that are surviving?
Yeah, was just speaking with somebody about that on the committee. I think if we can get them to survive a couple of years with the cages, that would be, we'll try to do that. And then at some point, we know that they have to come out, but we're not there yet. I'd like to keep them, protect them from the deer as long as possible.
Okay. Okay. Those were my questions.
Walter, I can't see if your hand is up.
It is.
It is. Thank you. You're broaching into a subject that I would want to pursue as well. Traditionally, when we have an applicant and they're cutting down trees, we ask for replanting remediation. Do we do that with dead trees?
But we are.
Within our area of influence, I mean, obviously, what the Boy Scouts have done at the top of the hill, we have no influence on, but down in our area, should we require that?
I don't recall requiring planting for cutting dead trees.
So if someone came in for a tree permit and they were cutting less than 4 trees, there was 2 additional dead trees. Those trees we wouldn't ask for mitigation for. That would still be kind of under my review for administrative work. But if they were cutting a whole area, I mean, what's the alteration? I mean, that's what it's about. If you're cutting down a bunch. What the concern here is what happens once you cut them down? What grows in? And that's why the planting was important, because to smother it with the natives is better than chasing the buckthorn out of there after it's been established. Although I'm not sure any of these places don't have buckthorn in it. I mean, South Forest is pretty overrun by buckthorn. So I think when you're cutting a bunch down and you're altering an area that much, you should be thinking about planting. I know the scouts have been out there. I know that you've done natural succession in other areas. I don't know if you have a report on that. I have a report on how that's worked. So I think that just takes a long time. I think there's a change. I think people are used to seeing trees, but in my opinion, as long as it's not buckthorn or invasives, even if it's coming in slowly, that change is okay.
The reason I brought all this up was in the future, if a Boy Scout wants to plant trees in our area, we put onto a condition that there's a survival rate. In order to survive, that means people are going to have to go and water it, at least water it or monitor it. Is that a condition we put in for future projects?
I think they should plant them all in our area because the water is there. But I don't know. I mean, again, we're at this point where I just said a few minutes ago, I think we should make our conditions and not worry about how they happen because we're trying to protect the wetland. If someone plants some trees and that's not part of this, right?
Correct.
So if they come in and you typically don't ask them to plant trees, I think that you could figure something out to do here because so many are coming down. It hasn't come in as part of this application, but It would be nice to know someone's evaluation about that. I think it's appropriate, to ask for some vegetation. I know I talked to Bill about this before, about monitoring or modifying that request for town meeting to have some part of it as replanting. Guess that didn't happen, but he knew that I was onto that. The commission's been on
I
that.
tried to get it, but I couldn't, just.
Yeah. So, yeah, so, I don't, to be honest with you, I think that you're on the right track. I think replanting should be, discussed. But let me segue into, and I know we're not gonna take much longer on this because boy,
I haven't even started asking questions yet.
boy, oh boy, have we been talking about it. So, I got a letter from Dave Williams and I put that on the website. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of it in the record. And Dave says that, on August 12th, he went out there for, 2-hour span and he noted a bunch of birds that he saw out in that area. And he said, without this clearing of this old red pines, which has created a monoculture there, which is true. We have a monoculture of red pines out in the town forest. I would have never seen these birds in this area. During a 10-minute span, he was thrilled to see so many birds. And there's a list of birds. I don't know if there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, so 10, 20. He's got 50 birds here that he saw. And in that 10-minute span, he probably saw 12 of them. Dave Williams, who is a ex-science teacher.
Science, yeah.
Said that the area in back of the council ring, which I don't know the number, the area in back of the council ring, in his opinion, had turned into a shrub habitat that birds are feeding. They can overwinter there. They can have escape cover. And pretty soon that will probably be grow up into a like an oak grove or something like that. But he was impressed. So that's one letter I got about how well the reforestation was happening. Bill, can you let me know how many years ago that had been cleared?
That was,
It's a yellow one, I think. So that would be the first phase.
that one was the second phase. So that would have, that was,
Is that 3?
it's area 3.
All right, so that's February of 22.
So in February of 22, and we're not seeing trees, although I bet you there's some small trees out there. We're seeing a lot more activity. So just take that into consideration.
If I could add one thing to that,
Sure.
when we've had many meetings with the DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, in their forester. When this was years ago before we started this program, and his opinion was, because when we talked about the avoidance of replanting, his opinion was you don't need to replant at all because there are seedlings in the understory that are ready to grow. They're waiting for the opportunity to grow. So we're seeing a bit of that in certain areas that even when the scouts were planting saplings, they had to make sure that they weren't planting them on top of another oak. So, we're not suggesting that we should necessarily take that advice because we like to have a kind of, a variety of native plants in there.
Yeah.
But it's going to grow. And so, we're certainly do all that we can to facilitate the best growth. And we're working closely with our tree warden, Mike Hannaford, on the type of saplings that are planted. So, I think we're all on the same page. We're all.
Was Mike consulted on the scout?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he had a say in all those trees.
Okay.
All right, I have another question, just came to me. You indicated that unfortunately you weren't able to modify your request to town meeting. we're lucky to have a town meeting member on this committee. Would you support an amendment once it comes to the floor if Martha Moore asked for a certain amount of that 100,000 for invasives to be spent on bare root saplings?
Could we do it this way? Since we don't know, we have no control of what the bids are gonna be. If the bids come in, say, on the tree cutting, the hardest part about the tree cutting in phase 4 is that we have this additional handwork and how that's gonna, what the cost for that's all gonna be. If we could say that if the bids come in for that work and there's money and it comes in at less than 150,000, actually less than 160 because we got 10,000 already from DCR, that the balance could be applied to replanting. Would that be acceptable?
Well,
Because I guess what I'm getting at is, if, say for the invasives, because obviously that's such a huge priority, if that ends up coming in, more, I'd hate to, cut back on the invasives work for replanting when we are doing it. It will get done, even without paying people to do it.
Question for me, I thought it was Chuck who brought it up.
no, I don't. I'm looking at. So you actually are stuck with only $50,000 for dead tree removal and $100,000. So what you should be saying is you would say yes to if there was any money left over from the bid for the 50,000 dead trees or the bid for the $100,000 invasives, because you can't use any invasive money for the dead trees. This is the way you wrote it. You have them separated, so.
Yeah,
Modify it later.
Given to me that way, but.
Yeah, so you could, I mean, we could talk about this later but we wouldn't want to do it without, we want to go up there and find out you go, no, we don't want to do that. So if they came up with a motion that said something like, if the bids come in low enough, the remaining money won't be spent on invasives, they'll be on a new invasive area, it will be spent on bare root saplings to buy to reforest
Which is short.
areas. You think we can do something like that?
I could.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll work together on some amendment or some.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems to work it in.
So I have a question, and it's actually not based on this, it's just about all this talk that's going on tonight about invasives. All you guys keep mentioning is buckthorn. There are many other kinds of
Yes.
invasives out there.
I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
Is your 100,000 trying to get more than just buckthorn again?
Yes, it's trying to address all the invasives on the access roads. And so, it's predominantly buckthorn, but you're right, there are other things.
But yeah, I mean, there's trees of heaven, garlic mustard, black swallowwort.
Yep. And especially, and I think that the trees of heaven are mostly in the compost area. So the Japanese knotweed, there's a lot of that in the compost area.
Yeah.
So I've had some discussions with Chris Cole about that is, how we're gonna deal with that, because we don't want that moving into the town forest, so.
Can I?
So I was going to ask about slash. Remember the gentleman from Western Mass who did the cutting, and there was lots of slash.
Yes,
Obviously, on Area 5, that's a whole different question because the log's going to be laid down there. What about the other two areas? What you're thinking for how much slash you got?
I think there's a standard, I can't recall, is it 2 or 3 foot? There's a standard DCR.
Right, and
I think that's been in the prior orders.
and it's different for deciduous versus conifer trees. I believe it's actually even 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But that was an issue for residents, people walking in there. So are you still going to allow that?
This gets into, we don't have control on who's gonna win the bid,
Right?
because we can't just sole source to the person that has the equipment that we like. That same person could bid again.
But are you gonna put it into the bid?
The slash height, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I control that.
And do you know what that is gonna be?
it's whatever was in, I assume whatever was in it the last time, which I think was 2 or 3 feet, I can't recall.
Right, with the gentleman from Western Mass, I don't think it was actually specified, so he fell back on the DCR's standards, and that's why so much was left. I don't remember it being specified, although it wasn't yesterday, so I'm not sure.
Sure, sure.
I remember that area in back of the council ring was just loaded with.
Yeah,
Right, and that's the area that Dave Williams is saying is doing so well now.
It's been about 2 years. I mean, like, you couldn't run through the place, but certainly it's not 3 foot high anymore.
Right.
so, going back to Dave's letter, I'm in full agreement with that. I have no problem at all with the cutting. And I'm glad to see that he's seen the response in the birds. My issue has always been cutting without the rest of the equation. And so we've had the conversation, I'll say it again on the record. The issue I have is these plans are piecemeal. We come in to say, I want to cut some trees. Then you come in and say, I want to clear some invasives. But you don't have an integrated plan where you are going to cut, and then as part of the same overall project, put this percentage of the money to doing planting of some kind. So first of all, we can see what the plan is, and we can have some conditions on survivability as opposed to 50% is a good number. Because what's your threshold? 10% good enough? Actually, in the plantings that we ask for in residential areas, we have a 85, 90% survival requirement. Sorry, yes, it's different in the forest, but I'm just saying, I don't like the fact that they're piecemeal. And we would be approving or not the cutting without knowing what the rest of the puzzle looks like, which has been my issue for several years now. And I don't know what to say about that, because you come back with the point that you don't know what money there will be for the following year. I would rather see a plan where you said, whatever money we get in any given year, we're going to put X% against whatever tree cutting is required that year, Y% against replanting, and just so it's built in that there will be a ratio of this much taken out and this much put in. So I still have that same objection, because once again, this is, we want to cut a bunch of trees and not going to be able to tell us much of anything on replacing them.
You're talking about replanting.
Yeah, and
We've been doing.
one other thought. Again, we've been talking about natural succession. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm fine with what Dave Williams said. But when you go look at some of the areas that have been cut for a while, and area 4 in particular, Chuck and I were in there for a different reason recently, 3.5 weeks ago. We stopped along there and we did see a fair number of small oaks and some other trees, but we saw a plethora of invasives, including like at least one tree of heaven, but a lot of buckthorn. And so there's a case where, if you want to look at it from the positive perspective, you say, yes, some of the more desirable trees are growing in. Look at it from the negative perspective, there's lots of bad stuff growing in. And if it's not controlled, is that going to smother the oak trees that are these little tiny things that are trying to grow? There's no plan to foster the kind of growth that you want, that we want.
But there is a plan. There's the $100,000 for invasives is to do exactly that. It's to, in these areas where we've, especially the areas that we've cut, and even areas that we haven't cut, that's, we're asking for a lot of money at town meeting. We're hopeful that we're going to get it. So, and, the scouts have planted hundreds of trees. Things are growing on their own. So, I wish I could say that, we'll be able to plant, 500 trees in the next 2 years, or that we'll be able to, deal with all of the rest of the invasives in the town forest. That's going to take years for that to happen. And you know, $100,000 is a lot of money. So I think we're doing everything that we possibly can to do exactly what you want, which is not just cut trees, but deal with invasives and plant new trees.
So let me paint a negative picture because that's what I do. So if you look at it from my perspective, you're cutting trees. You're saying you're cutting, and in the narrative, it says cut all the hazard trees. Of course, you're not getting all the hazard trees. You're not getting all the hazard trees right near popular walking areas. You're getting many of them. Invasives are growing in. You hope to get to them if the money is improved in the future. In the meantime, you are doing plantings, counting on volunteer efforts. Most of those plantings, they may not be dead, but they're certainly not thriving. We'll have to see in the spring whether some of them come back. But right now, I see more sticks than I see plants that are not growing. And so that's a pretty negative perspective. That's a pretty negative picture. And so you're coming here again to ask for permission to do more of the same. Right?
Okay.
Can I paint a little bit of a rosier picture?
Be hard not to.
In the event this project does not go forward, these trees are going to blow down on their own. They may not even be touching the ground. They'll be supporting each other, but that canopy will open up. The sunlight's going to get through, and whatever's there in that seed bank is going to grow. And no one's going to go out and control any invasives whatsoever. No one's going to go out and do any types of planting whatsoever. So a no action alternative is kind of the worst case, where there's no control on invasives and no management of beneficial species. This is a program that over how many years? How long has it been your
January 2000,
So
2020.
So for going on close to 5 years, they've managed to not only remove the hazards, but have stewarded to some extent plantings through volunteer efforts. And some of those may not be known too far in advance, but they have a little bit of a record, I think, of pulling those resources together, of getting enough plantings in there to the point where Mr. Williams is observing some very beneficial impacts from the beneficial effects from the species of trees and the diversity of trees and the diversity of wildlife that they're attracting. So I don't think it's the worst case that you're looking at. I think this program, has shown that so far they've been able to manage it to a very positive outcome.
So let me point out that's a false equivalency that you just did. Because on the one extreme where they do nothing, but I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking of a middle ground where they do some cutting, do some planting and invasive management and do an integrated ongoing fashion as opposed to, whack-a-mole. This time we're going to cut trees. This time we're going to do invasives. And we're going to count on somebody magically doing some plantings that may magically on their own survive.
But we're doing exactly that. We are cutting, and then the next piece would be the invasives. And then, the Scouts, the Trees for Reading program, they still have a fair amount of money, and it's ready to go for new planting. So it's all there. And again, I can't tell you if we're going to even get the 150 that we're asking for at town meeting. I certainly can't tell you what's going to happen on the next town meeting. I can't promise anything without knowing how much money we have.
Yeah, I'm not looking for promises. I understand that whole thing. I'm looking for a plan, an integrated plan.
This is the plan.
Okay. So, are there any more questions from anybody in the commission?
Yeah, I had a quick question, and maybe I'll just turn it into a statement, so you don't have to answer it, so we can just move on. I was wondering why the road shoulder was chose. So you have $100,000, let's say you get that money. And out of the entire town forest, you've decided that next to the road, which is probably the most disturbed area and will continually be mostly disturbed and probably filled in with who knows what, and there's a seed bank there. Why are you expending all your money there? Isn't there a better spot that you want to protect that you could spend your $100,000 on to eliminate invasives besides next to the road? We can cut that down with, DPW equipment each year and have it at bay. I was just wondering if you thought about that, or maybe are you locked into cutting this, or if another place came up?
I mean, when we had Parterre did their assessment, their inventory of where the invasives were. I could probably pull the map up to show you, but most of the areas were on the trails or on the roads, because that's where the sun gets in.
Yeah.
That's what, like most plants, that's what they need. So that's why most of them, so, it's not like we're saying that, we're only gonna do the roads. But that's where most of the buckthorn is along the roads. Certainly other areas, we've had other volunteers at various times have come out, between Scouts and Amazon came out. They pulled buckthorn in other places. So, we will certainly, before we put a bid package together for where this 100,000 is spent, we will certainly look at the areas. And
So you're not locked into the road. You could change it if you.
we're locked
if you
into
felt-
where the buckthorn and the invasives are.
Anywhere with a buckthorn.
Anywhere where
in
the
town forest.
invasives are in the town.
I just thought maybe there was a spot that you almost eradicated it, and if you just hit it one more time, then it seemed like, you really have made a difference over there. I mean, maybe there's a spot that hardly has any, you're not thinking now, thinking about volume, but you could eradicate.
That'll be part of the bid package.
Yeah. All right, I just wanted to mention it. I'm done.
Brian, just one comment from me. I would hate to lose a good project when we're in search of a perfect project. And knowing that there's only 4 of us here tonight, we really need to make sure that we vote in a way that this project can go to town meeting before our next conservation meeting.
Consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody in the public want to say anything? Can you come up and,
Dr.
No, you have to stand near the podium or the microphone won't catch you.
in the camera?
Nancy, Dr. Pearl Street, and a member of Town Forest Committee. Just to kind of reiterate, we're going by some of the experts who are telling us what areas of the town forest to target for the invasive, specifically for this. So it's not that we specifically chose the roads themselves, but we're going on the assessments of Parterre in terms of the most concentrated areas that we want to target first. That's all.
Yeah.
So, and thank you very much for your comment, Martha. I appreciate that.
So having said that, does anybody want to bring up a motion?
This is an RDA, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we vote for a negative determination on this RDA.
Just tell me I second that.
Walter Talbot's in favor of it.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
And do you have any, are you gonna, what was that? Wait a minute. I didn't see what that was. I think you stopped halfway through.
Against my better senses, this is Brian, I'm in favor.
So we do,
Thank you,
let's go over
Brian.
some
I
conditions.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Did Brian vote?
I'm in favor.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I was wondering if we could go over the conditions.
Sure.
Fill in the ruts. Any compacted area will have to be aerated. No closer than 25 feet to the wetland unless, this is modified, unless it's approved in advance by a Conservation Commission member or myself. So you have an opportunity to have us go out there. Slash height. Do we have a slash height?
Let me just say, following the DCR standards.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's for conifers, so there's a difference.
following DCR standards, the areas that are being done is 5, 12, and 13. To cut all the wood into sections so it touches the ground.
That'll only apply to area 5, right?
Area 5. And there will be no trees fell into the wetland
Or parts of trees.
or or pots of trees, or slash being somehow getting in there, like someone will have to clean it up by, if it happens by mistake. Any other conditions?
It's already in the forest cutting plan, but just reminder that some of the trees are being topped, not all are being felled at ground level.
Yep.
Should we,
Go ahead.
should we specify frozen ground? I know it was in the plan, so.
Could I just ask one? So we had expected that we would go to frozen ground in what, for the last contract.
Right.
And the contractor came to us in November and said, it's been very dry. This is actually a very good time to do the work. And it was fortunate that he did, because if you recall, the winter this year was so warm. If we had waited, then we would have had a problem. So I would, if I could just offer that, it'd be,
So that makes sense. Trying to think of a way to have control over the condition. Because if you remember the guy from Western Mass, it was a really frozen time and for different kind of issues. He didn't quite get to go ahead in time. So by the time he went, it began to thaw. And that's why it all got chewed up.
yes, I agreed.
So if there was a way that he targeted for the dry and the frozen, and there was some trigger mechanism where Chuck could say, for change of conditions, give the go, even though it's not quite frozen and not quite absolutely.
Why don't you just have me, why don't you just, with the approval of the conservation administrator, the work can start in between the time frame set by DCR.
Right.
I think we have some safeguards with the ruts, with the aerating. Don't get any closer. I don't know if we need to add any. Does anyone think of it? So if they're doing this in dry conditions, what would be? I don't know. I mean, frozen, we haven't had frozen.
I know.
This might be a reality of global warming. I mean, that's
We missed
that.
Yeah. And DCR has already given us the limit of May 15th through February 28th. And we're expecting it'll happen this winter. So we're already into November through February. So it is winter.
And last year, or whatever year they did it when it was warm, I didn't see any major problems like, oh, we're not gonna have to do that. I think what's important here is that we have a contractor and that's great, you're gonna get a contractor. But even if that falls apart, I think that Bill can ask the DPW. I'm not saying they're gonna get to it right away. But I just think that he has that in his back pocket. If he ever had to say, this really fell apart on us, can't leave it like this.
And they did help.
They did.
Got to get back in there.
I want to put
In
it.
that February with the phase 2,
Yeah.
the guy from Western Mass.
Yeah.
Because we did get a warm spell. When he started, it was cold and then it warmed up, but we got a bit of rain and.
Okay,
All right.
I don't have anything else.
With the approval of the conservation administrator.
Okay.
Brian, would it help to include a condition to prepare a short-term, within a couple of years, some type of a plan or an outline to address some of the concerns that you brought up?
I don't think that's fair. As much as I like the idea, I think we need to do conditions on this thing that they're applying for.
Yeah, I think the town, the people that use this will ask for more. They'll say, hey, when are you gonna stop planting? Well, hey, all the invasives are growing in. You're gonna be pushed by the public for sure. That's great in a way because that's town meeting members, So I think this thing will roll along. I like what you said about if you don't do anything, they're gonna fall all over the place. So it seems like we're taking care of the immediate issue. And I'm not sure if that invasive is the second immediate issue.
So would a condition specifically addressing invasives facilitate future funding? If there's a requirement that says that X percentage or X number or some measurable value of invasives have to be removed or X number of plantings have to occur within 2 years or 3 years to 70% or even 50% survival. That's a condition in an order, in an approval. Is that something the Forest Committee goes to town meeting and says, look, now we have this legal obligation
So
to meet this?
to me, part of the issue there is a lot of the places that where they would do the replanting, where they have done already, is not in our jurisdiction.
Mhm.
And so.
In the buffer zone, that is within our jurisdiction.
There are places where they did, that's not, I mean, up by the fire circle, that's not within that spitting distance of us. And so again, I don't think that's appropriate for this, as much as I like the idea. I think we need to decide this on the merits and condition it on the merits. Thank you.
Just an idea.
I know. Any other conditions?
And you know that you can just make a motion to that effect and see if it flies with anyone else. You don't have to get permission, but,
4 members, I can anticipate.
no, I'm just telling you, there would have been another way to do it if you felt like it, you know, if you felt strongly about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I do like the idea. I just think there's a lot of public pressure here. And I think that, you know, we have a town forest committee. Their one purpose is to monitor and safeguard what happens in the town forest. You know, maybe someday they'll, you know, won't be worried about the pines falling over and they can address something else.
Okay,
We've done a lot in the last 5 years. We've accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And we have another hearing that's waiting for us. So I think we can wrap up these conditions and move on. That would be great.
I don't have any other, I would do it.
That we don't have another move. That's just the conditions, because we
So
already
we don't
voted.
Vote on the
for
conditions.
Do we vote on conditions? I don't think so.
We don't need to. These are the conditions. No,
oh, we should have done conditions.
those are the conditions. If there's no more, then we're good to move on.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Me,
Thank you.
I do, Michael.
Okay.
Oh, yes, good job.
For the next thing, we're going to go out of order quickly to cover an enforcement situation. I understand Michael Rivers is with us, 445 Pearl Street.
Mike, can you unmute yourself? Turn on your video if you'd like.
Yep.
Okay. Hi.
So Mike, you go ahead. Why don't you tell us what's up?
Okay, so I've been out of the state for the majority of this last month, but I have since last meeting, I have cut back all the multiflora rose and buckthorn, and that is really overgrown with a lot of very aggressive stuff. So I cut off most of that back, exposed the site to work in, and I started to do some hand work along a road. There's a wood road retaining wall on the south bank of that that was kind of barely exposed. There was some probably crushed stone that rolled off the edge of it. So I doing some hand work to expose that before I grab a machine and get in there and do the bulk of the work. And that's where I stand now.
Okay, so to try and make this quick for all of us, so what are you thinking the next milestone is?
I'm gonna continue to, I've got pretty much half that retaining wall exposed, so I'm gonna finish hand by hand with that. And then probably bring the machine in with maybe in 2 weeks from now. And at that point, it'll be fast. We'll just be pulling everything back. It'll be fast to get the coconut coal logs and the crushed stone base in there. And then my willow saplings will be ready right around mid-November is when they'll be ready. So,
Okay, so our next meeting is November 13th. And because of the holidays, we only have one meeting in both November and December. So it sounds like you probably should come back on the meeting in December. I'm not sure what day it is, but the second Wednesday.
The second Wednesday, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
I was just gonna check the date. It's the 11th of December. And I would love to hear that your project has been completed by then. If your willow saplings will be available in mid-November, it sounds like you ought to be able to get everything done before that December meeting. And if so, you could tell us that we could come out for a site visit and take a look at it before the 11th. We would normally go out on the 9th to take a look at things for the meeting on the 11th.
That sounds good.
Okay,
Okay. Site visit on the 11th.
Okay,
no, site visit on the 9th.
Okay.
right, so the Monday before.
Okay?
All right,
Sounds good.
I think we're all set.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for sticking with us.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
So now to the last hearing of the evening, which is 29 Green Meadow Drive. Who's here for that?
You want to read the blurb or you want to just go with it?
I just go with it,
Sure.
interest of time.
Sure. Do you want to, are you, yes, hey, so, there you go.
There you go.
Okay,
All
now you're talking about, hey, please introduce yourself for the record and bring us up to date with your project, and you have permission to share the screen, and we'll, sit back and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tironi. So, hello everyone, good evening. My name is Ujjwal Shah. I'm a resident of Reading since 2022. I moved here with my wife and we bought our home at 29 Green Meadow Drive, which is the property in question. Been here since last 2 years. Since then, I've been blessed with 3 kids, 1 2-year-old daughter, 3 months old twins, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't be there in person. So I apologize. Now, I'm not an environmental scientist, or I've never presented to this commission before. So please allow me some leeway if I make some errors. I apologize in advance. I've tried my best to put a plan together after talking to individuals, after talking with Miles from Part Here. I've also consulted Mr. Chuck Tironi, who has been extremely helpful with the process and the support. I'm going to share my screen, so just let me know once you're able to see it.
We see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me just go into the high-level summary. So the project is about invasive plant management and native planting. It's for my backyard, and just by hearing a couple of other projects that I heard, it's like probably about 250 times smaller in scope. So it's really, really small. There are no tree cuttings, no construction, no swimming pool, nothing like that, no heavy machinery involved. It's just a proposal for invasive plant management and native planting. So it's in an area which is part of the Johnson Woods property. It has an overlap with the conservation buffer zone, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. The problem is that because it's part of the conservation, it has been completely unattended, and the backyard is now overrun with Concord grapevines that is highly aggressive. It's climbing, killing trees. It's threatening some of the houses. And then on top of that, there are also a lot of other invasive plants that we have identified, such as buckthorn, that continues to spread. And I strongly believe that if left unchecked, they will also enter the adjacent unmanaged conservation land, which is currently under Reading Open Land Trust. And due to the conservation restriction, the current residents, my neighbor or the HOA, they are not able to manage the vegetation. The solution I have proposed for your approval is identification, manual removal of all those identified aggressive and invasive plant species with herbicide application coming done by licensed practitioners in late fall 2024. After that, we would like to install new native shrubs as a mitigating factor, add some ground cover, add a tree, as well as low-mint seed during the spring of 2025. And I would also like the contractor, which we have decided on is part here, who will do the initial removal, will also do a follow-up around in early summer in 2025. The plan was presented to the HOA committee of Johnson Woods, the board of trustees, and the landscape committee of the Johnson Woods, and they have approved the plan as of 5th of October. If the commission over here gives a favorable decision, then I would like to proceed with the plan in November 24. And as I mentioned, there will be another phase in summer of 25. And then I will, there will be regular maintenance by a resident, that's me, going forward. So that's the high level summary. I've put some slides together to walk you through the plan. I know some of you have visited my site, some of you haven't. So I'll take 5-10 minutes if I have that time to give you some more color and details around it.
Okay, sure, but fairly brief, please.
Yep. All right. So this is a high level bird's eye view in terms of where this property is. It's in the west of town of Reading. It's this particular building, which is a townhome. I share it with my neighbor, and the project scope is as highlighted in the red box over here. It borders the Reading Open Land Trust, which is behind my place. This I picked it up from a site plan. It shows the buffer zones and the conservation markers. The line at the top is the 25 feet of zone of natural vegetation. The property in question is number 15, and this box here identifies where I would like to run this project. So if I take a photo of this was taken last year. As you can see, the border indicates the buffer zone over here. There are the conservation markers. There is a stone wall, and the area behind is what is the Reading Open Land Trust. There's a lot of dead vegetation here that has been consumed by the invasive and the vines. If I take a photo during the summer, this is what it looks like. The part which is highlighted by red, that's the Concord grape. It just comes up in summer and just takes over everything. It takes over the trees, it takes over some of the houses. That's what's really killing everything. And that's the primary root cause that I would like to have this project done. So we went around with the help of part here. We identified multiple invasives over there. So there, of course, there's a Concord grape, there's garlic mustard, common privet, there's buckthorn, poison ivy. I understand poison ivy is not invasive, but because it's so close to where we live and we have small kids, there's a little danger over there. The plan in terms of removal is that we will have part here, their field technicians who maintain Massachusetts pesticide applicators license. They will come, they will identify, they will manually hand pull cut those invasive plants, and they will apply herbicide through cut and dab technique. With the approval, we will remove this, and we will, in early summer, we will return to, put more native trees. The herbicide we are planning to use is Garlone 3A. We have provided the details and data sheets for that already. In terms of native plants, there are some native plants that we have identified, which are there. They'll be there. We don't plan to touch them. On top of that, we want to add more native plants. So there will be native shrubs that will be adding, summer sweet and winterberry. We would like to add some more native ground cover as well. There is one native tree that we are planning, which is the dogwood. And then in order to maintain a good balance for the rest of the space, we would like to have a low-man seeding using natural fertilizer. This is the last slide. So this is what the plan looks like on the left. The big 3 green bulbs that you see are the existing trees, so we're not touching them. In order to maintain some buffer from the stone wall, we're gonna leave like 5 feet buffer. There will be ferns over there. Then we are gonna plant 4 new shrubs, which will be native shrubs, summer sweet and winterberry, which are highlighted by this small green circle, and 1 tree, the flowering dogwood. We plan to, if the commission approves, we plan to have a very temporary bird bath and a wood bench with some ferns here, which will be outside the 25 feet buffer zone. So that's the plan that I have. That's all I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Please let me know if you have any questions.
Martha, do you want to take people through a site visit?
Sure. On our site visit, we did see the markers that are marked in blue on this plan. And they had a salamander picture on them and a blue label on top that said conservation restriction. So we asked the homeowner and Chuck both to see if they could find out what the terms of that conservation restriction are. We also noticed that on the woodsy side of the conservation bounds, there were plastic, trash, water bottles, empty flower pots, that kind of thing, in among the invasives that you're proposing to remove. The Homeowners Association manager, Steve Kerwin, was there. And he pointed out to us that the picture in the back row, there are 3 trees that are existing trees, the big green blobs. At least one of them has a hole through from one side to the other at the root base. And he was questioning whether he could get permission to take that down. And I know that's not part of this project, but I wanted to make sure that Chuck knew about that. And also, if we go back a few slides to the overview of the property, a couple of slides further back, that one, one more forward. Yeah, on the other side of the house, the 15 neighbors side, there are along the property edge some trees that are completely enwrapped in bittersweet. And I was noticing those and thinking we need to tell Steve Kerwin about that. If he's doing any tree work, he should really have somebody cut those bittersweet vines so that we protect the trees on that border, on what's the left side of this picture near the place where it changes to green. Okay, and I'm glad to hear the applicant saying that he's not planning to do anything with the native plants that are in that area behind the blue boxes, because there were elderberries there and arrowwood that we saw. It's a little late in the season to see the jewelweed. We could see the remains of some ferns back there. So I'm concerned about loaming and seeding in that zone of natural vegetation behind the markers. And that's my biggest concern with this project, is the proposal to loam and seed behind there. I think that's all I have.
Chuck, do you want to talk about what you found when we looked up the conservation restriction?
Sure. So I checked into the application and the order of conditions for Johnson's Woods in this area. There are 2 permits for different sections of Johnson's Woods. And what I found in back of number 15, and along this area here, is not a conservation restriction, but an easement. And specifically, the last conservation administrator asked for the easement of the zone of natural vegetation to be set forth in the deed. And so they tell us that there's a deed out there, book and page, and this easement, which is part of the zone of natural vegetation, which is the area in back of the blue squares, is an easement. Now, what the easement is for, and from reading this, it's just to establish the fact that this area is a zone of natural vegetation. So it's in our order of conditions. It's also recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So it's definitely known about. You'll find it in two different areas. So it's not a conservation restriction. So the plaques are a little misleading. I think the applicant will find that helpful. The Conservation Commission understands what we allow, we don't allow in the zone of natural vegetation. While I have the floor, I'm just gonna mention that although it's Concord grape, I don't know how much of the property is going to be modified based on, I think that last slide showed what you wanted, but it didn't show what was going to be removed. That one there, it would be interesting to know how much, or if any, of that green area exists now, and the Concord grape does not get into that area. Because right now, when I look at this, I think all of the green, in that zone of natural vegetation line is straight through the center of it, just about. I'm thinking that that's all the area you're going to be modified. None of that is lawn now. So that would be my one question.
Yes, and I don't know if I can do this, but it's basically, this is the only area where new lawn would be added. The neighboring piece, there's already lawn here, right? I think over here, I'm not an expert here, but I think this is not lawn on this side. It's more of a moss.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would assume what I would like to do is have a bit of a uniformity, if possible, if you guys agree. But the new lawn, the real modification is happening in this area only. This is where the grapevines have kind of taken over, but they go all the way to this tree. They have going on this direction as well. They are kind of spreading in the conservation land on this side, but all the roots are coming in this from somewhere from here. I don't know, Mr. Tirone, if that's helpful, if that's what.
That was very helpful. That answered my question for sure.
If I just go back over here, right? So this is what I already highlighted in the red, is the exact same piece that's being highlighted in red in this photograph.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners?
I wasn't at the site visit, but I reviewed the application, and one question I did want to ask is, the name of an applicator was given in the presentation. I went to look up the license. I couldn't find the license. So if we could just get a copy of the license or proof that the applicator is current with his license. Just to confirm that.
Good condition.
And for someone who doesn't do these types of presentations every day, I thought this was a very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Sorry, just so that I understand your ask, is it you want to understand if Miles has a license, or if Part Here would own people or they employ people who have that license?
The person who would be doing the work.
Okay, yes. So I don't think Miles himself Miles is the guy with whom I partnered, who was a consultant. He helped me reviewing some of this aspects. I think his company will employ people who would have those licenses. I don't have the names, but I can get that information from him.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that the people that are doing the work are in fact licensed.
Yes, that is a strict criteria I've put on him for this project, but I will ensure that you get those details.
Thank you.
Martha?
So I know you would love to have lawn connected to your existing lawn that the homeowners association mows. But I believe that the rules for zone of natural vegetation does not permit us to give permission for loam and seed lawn. It does allow us to give permission for ground cover. That would be a native ground cover, and shrubs and trees. And you've proposed some shrubs and trees. If you left the arrowwood and the elderberry, I think there would be quite a lot of shrubs there. You're proposing putting in some ferns, but I think I would like to see the ferns or other ground cover coming all the way up to the line delineated with the blue markers. And I know you'd love to have more lawn. You've kind of got shortchanged on lawn behind your half of the house there. But the restriction does really say that that needs to be natural vegetation, natural ground cover, shrubs, trees. That's it.
Would you, so, obviously, I heard after the site walk, where this was heading, and I did some searching on, other town sites and looked at their vegetation schedule and what they recommend. There is one, and I could provide that to the commission and to the applicant, that has grasses. I don't know if that qualifies, but it seems to be interesting, at least.
Are you talking turf lawn that gets mowed grass, or are you talking native grasses?
I didn't look into it, but I just noticed that in the ground cover section of this one town's, I might have even sent it to you tonight, not to you, but to the applicant. It talked about ground cover, and within that list, there were grasses. So for what it's worth, maybe it's just grass. It might be those big hummocks type situation.
If I may, with your permission, one of the key motivation for me is, well, of course, I want to maintain a good habitat. Like right now, it's really wild. It's getting out of control. So I do want to restore it. Right, I want to do what is good for the environment. But it's gonna have a huge financial implication for me. Like it's in thousands of dollars, in a high single digit, just for the removal and then adding new shrubs and trees. It's even more. So if I'm doing that, I would like some leeway. I would like some motivation so that my kids and my family, the community can enjoy the space. I'm not asking to, remove any trees or cut down any big trees. I'm just asking that, hey, while we do this, while I'm helping to make it better, can I add some extra green space to it? And I'm happy to work around with this, but I would like to make this place that is usable, that we can access and enjoy the outdoors. So if there are some grass species which you feel that, hey, that are more environmental friendly, and I'm okay. I don't want to use any turf lawns. If there are some naturally occurring grass that you feel, hey, maybe you use this grass, this is better. I'm happy to work with that. I took the initiative to discuss this point with Parthier after you guys gave me that feedback on Monday. I had an hour-long discussion with Parthier saying, hey, what is it that we can do? And he provided a couple of recommendations. Hey, look, maybe you can look at no mown lawn. He recommended that maybe you look at white clover that can probably help with some kind of pollination, help improve the habitat for the bees and things like that. So I'm willing to work with the conservation. Hope we can find a way that can achieve both our goals, right, in the spirit of preserving the habitat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say where this is a project where invasive species are being removed, it's a beneficial project. And, you know, I know in a lot of cases, we typically require ground cover, shrub layer, and a tree layer to be part of a restoration. But where there's really no other construction going on here, this is essentially an invasive control program, right? I think there's a little bit of leeway where we could certainly reduce the number of individual plantings and go with some type of a wetland seed mix or a wildflower mix or like a wetland flower mix that.
I think it was brought up, but that area that I'm seeing in pink, but it may be red, that's native vegetated buffer strip that's being proposed.
With ferns in it.
Yeah, and
And that's within what line? That's
It's the first 5 feet from the wetland.
right.
So
But-
it's 0 to 5, and then 5 to 25 is where
Right,
he's
where the blue
proposing
markers are.
getting
Yeah.
rid of the.
20 feet of,
So instead of the sand and loam, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the pink area with the ferns. I'm talking about the loam and grass area. Instead of extending a more, what's the right word? A more comprehensive planting regime that has shrubs and trees, keeping that kind of a low wetland ground cover.
However, it would still be a no mow zone.
It would still be mow zone.
Still wouldn't likely become a soccer pitch.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be mowed, but I don't think we, in exchange for having the invasive species removed, I'd rather have low ground cover than, grapevines smothering anything there.
Yeah,
So,
so,
like whether it's more jewelweed or whether it's
Right.
it's a wetland grass or something.
so what are you suggesting about the elderberry, the arrowwood? We did see some poplars in there, either quaking aspen or a related
Yeah, I mean, if those are there, I
species.
would leave them.
Okay, so leave the natives, work around the natives, and I'm thinking when you're talking about the flower, wildflower seed, I'm thinking of that place where he put in his putting green in the backyard.
Right.
And he has all these black-eyed Susans and things growing behind the 25-foot line. Something like that.
But just to make it clear, the things we're talking about are natural vegetation of different kinds. Some may be lower, some may be taller, some may be in the grass family, some may not. But it's still not going to be a place you can mow short to have, a barbecue or things like that on it. Do you understand that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I understand, right? And I think that's why one of the counter I made was about the no mow lawn. What I was told that, hey, look, it's a no mow lawn. It's a bit more friendly. You don't have to mow that. So if you can share a couple of, hey, look, Mr. Applicant, these are 4 or 5 options the conservation is okay with. And if that is something which is a healthy compromise, I'm happy to work around with that.
Okay. Walter, I can't see. Is your hand up? Do you have anything you want to add?
You've covered everything. I was on the site visit. It would be nice to have it look much more aesthetically than it does now. And removing the invasives is a positive thing. The only dilemma is there's some picture or some place we could have them look at to see what's going to look like if we have this other alternative grasses, alternative growth, so he really understands what he's getting into.
My question is, like, you guys are the experts over here. Is what you're proposing, is it gonna be good for, you know, a 1 or 2 year toddler to run around and just enjoy outdoors, right? I understand it won't be like a perfectly cut turf grass. I don't want that. I want it a bit more natural. But would it be good for small kids to just go and enjoy that space?
So I don't think that the Conservation Commission should do the research and figure out what you're going to put in there. There's many things out there. And if Mark here doesn't know it, maybe a landscape architect would have some suggestions. I understand that there's a certain part of this that has to happen now. But like Walter said, we should look at a plan. So maybe this can happen in 2 phases. If moving forward with native ground cover is where we're heading. But if it's a no-go, then it doesn't matter. But to get that first treatment in this season, and the planting was never happening until spring, and we could have, we can come back in the spring, you know, not at our next meeting, but in the spring with a plan to review and to see what this is going to look like. That might be a good next step.
Yeah, maybe more January, early February, because it may take a couple of meetings to work through some of the planting details.
Yeah.
I would still be a little concerned in giving a lot of hope to the idea that a 2-year-old could run around out there. I don't know what you picture the 2-year-old doing while they're running around. If they're just running through the grasses, sure. I mean, I did that as a kid. But if you're thinking of some more traditional play area, I think that would not be happening.
Yeah, and if it were my 2-year-old, I would want to make sure I do a good thorough tick check when the child comes back from running around in among the black-eyed Susans.
Yeah, I think to a 2-year-old, you know, even vegetation that comes up to, you know, our knees or our waist looks like an impenetrable forest. I don't know how many 2-year-olds are gonna go running into the woods.
I thought you were going to go the opposite direction.
You haven't seen my 2-year-old right now.
Climb in the vines.
That's what they all say.
Yeah,
All right.
I also think that it should be left up to you how the final plantings look within the restrictions that we're asking for, just because there's a whole variety of costs and, you know, it may turn out that it's easier, faster and cheaper and less maintenance to, you know, to put in shrubs than it is to get a wetland seed mix at 140 something bucks a pound sometimes, and, you know, spray it, water, you know, prepare the ground, you know, ply it, water it, and whatnot. So I think when you're coming up with your planting plan, you also want to think about what some of the long-term maintenance might be in terms of watering and invasive control and things like that.
So it sounds like, are we ready to talk through conditions before we have a motion?
Are you going to move this, or are you going to continue it, but just allow the invasive control that was set up for November?
I was thinking that we would move it. But I mean, either way, see what the commission says, but.
I have no objection to having them do the invasive control. But I think it's important that the applicant doesn't envision 6-inch tall ground cover that their toddler can wander around in safely, because that's not often what you find in native plants. You're going to have more of the jewelweed and the ferns at that ground level, which is perfectly safe for the kids. Kids love to play with jewelweed. But I also think that there's a lot of vegetation in there that you want to preserve, but you're going to need to go back year after year to fight back the grapes and the bittersweet and stuff like that. So I think a condition would need to allow repeated maintenance of keeping down the invasives.
I would also add that the purpose of the blue markers is to conserve a zone of natural vegetation, right? And that zone, as the Wetland Protection Act talks about, and our bylaws talk about, is to provide a buffer for water quality, for plants, for animals, for amphibians. And you really wouldn't want people walking around through a buffer. I mean, that's why it's a buffer, right? That's why we have that zone of native vegetation, is to provide that extra native buffer, and we generally don't advocate for people to get in that space, so.
Yeah, right now, we don't walk it, but it's gone crazy, right? I understand we want it to be, like, if it was perfectly okay, if there were no invasive, there were no gray points, I wouldn't have come to you for any kind of project, right? I would left it untouched, but that's not what's going on. For whatever reason, the invasives have taken over, the gray points have taken over. They are planning, like, once it goes in the conservation land, then I don't think there is anyone walking in those to even come and tell you, hey, look, there's something bad happening over here. So I'm putting a lot of my time, resources. You guys are also doing that. I think we all on the
I'm
same
sorry to
page.
interrupt. We understand that. We just want to make sure that we're clear that in the space beyond the blue boxes, that it's really an area that really shouldn't be used. It needs to be left in a natural condition, and shouldn't be thought of as a place where children on a regular basis, or anyone else on a regular basis, is going to access.
Yeah, people do occasionally walk into their zone of natural vegetation.
They do,
It's
but
not
that's
like
why I
they
said
can't.
regularly.
Right, regularly is the key word there.
What I thought was gonna happen, and I know you guys seem to be heading in the opposite direction. Don't see how you can just give direction and an approval. Because this is hard to understand, even though you probably all think that you're very clear. So the applicant should have enough time to research whatever he wants for ground cover. And if it will stand people walking on it, then he should be able to, I mean, that's fine if it's going to do that. And, you know, I know there's some vegetation out there that you want left, but, you know, maybe what we found out here is that this is a small area, but it's pretty important to get it right. And maybe Parterre would be great at the invasive removal, but as far as the revegetation within the zone of natural vegetation, kind of combining what the commission wants and what you want, Parterre might not be able to fill that bucket. And we might have to look to another landscape architect or another company that just does planting to try to figure out what they know about this area, and then come back to the commission with a plan, and we can say, oh yeah, we get it, these are all native, he's happy with it, we're happy with it, and you can move forward. And then you'd have all your costs and all your understanding about what can happen and not happen out there. And that's kind of why I mentioned, like, is there a certain part that we want to move forward? But then I thought later on that you move forward with some of this kind of locked in. You're going to start spending money, and then you're locked into doing the whole project, or at least doing the invasive portion. So I don't know if the commission is ready to approve or just approve a portion and have them come back in January, second meeting in January, first meeting in February, with a plan from a garden person that would, you know, really understand both sides and come up with a better situation than just throwing stuff out there.
So we would approve the invasive removal and not,
Just allow it to, I mean,
yeah,
it's not like I'm already half a permit.
right, no, that's right. So you can do the invasive removal, but you wouldn't have approval for putting anything in there without coming back with a planting plan. We would get to look at it, review it, agree with it or not. And
You're only approving the November treatment. The spring treatment, if there's one, or any other removal, is not being approved.
Right, this is just this.
Just November tree.
And does the November treatment include application of herbicide cut and down?
Absolutely, that's the first step.
Okay, and does that need permitting by us? I think it does.
It does, but we've reviewed it. We understand it's Garlon 3A and it's done by a licensed applicator. We have some conditions here.
Okay.
This is not ready from this discussion tonight because I don't think, I mean, I know jewelweed is, I think it's okay, but I don't know if I would
Okay,
think
so,
that'd be great.
so rather than going round and round. So it sounds then that we're looking for a continuance
For the planting plan part.
for the planting. We're not going to do a separate approval, explicit approval for the this invasive removal.
Yeah,
We're going to continue the hearing to talk about a planting plan when the homeowner's been able to do his homework and come back with some ground cover that meets his needs, and then we can decide if it meets our needs.
Okay, and at one point or another in this process, I'd like to put in a condition of removing the plastic trash from the zone of natural vegetation. I think the homeowner will probably want to do that anyway, but the
Yeah, well,
pots and the water bottles.
Yes.
That's part of the
Right now,
bid.
it's in a place that is inaccessible at all, but yeah, of course, we'll remove it.
I would think this first piece of work would be the time to do it because they're going to be clearing all that vegetation out so you can get to it all.
Okay,
So just so that sorry, I need a clarification. So you are saying that the only piece which is unclear is on this green ground cover piece. But the other shrubs, trees, which I have highlighted here, is that okay? Or you still wanna review? I'm just trying to understand, do you want the whole thing to be torn apart and start from
No,
scratch? Or just
absolutely right.
looking for what's
in green.
ground cover?
Only what you highlighted.
Yeah, I'm happy with
Everything else is
your
fine.
dogwood and winterberry and summer sweet and hay scented fern. Those are all great. And I like your area of fern in the back, but I just don't want loam underneath your dogwood in the 5 to 25 foot area. That's where we're looking for ground cover that's not grass. And it could be wildflowers, it could be ferns, it could be, whatever a landscaper recommends that would meet your needs and be natural vegetation and not lawn. And there are apparently some native grasses that would qualify.
Okay.
Okay.
So would you agree to a continuance then until, say, the first meeting in January?
No, not the first meeting. Let's get it to, I don't know, why am I? 25th. First meeting would be the 8th. Second meeting would be the 22nd. I think the 22nd would be better than the
Just to
first.
give them more time, right?
The first meeting is always hard
Because too short.
for the commission too.
So is that okay with you?
So just so that I understand, again, I apologize.
All right.
I'm getting a thumbs up for invasive right now. I can proceed with that in November, but I can't do anything else until the plan for replantation is approved on 22nd, reviewed and approved on 22nd. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes, and you can do all your research and homework and have a plan in place that we could review and discuss with you at that point.
Okay.
And
I'm-
should be available for you to start planting by the time spring planting season has come around. Right? If
Yes.
we Prove it in January or even in February, you'll be able to start planting in the spring.
Okay. Okay. And when I go through this homework process and landscaping architect, if the plan of replantation changes a little bit, is that okay? Or do I have to stick with this dogwood and or what I've put here? If they come up, hey, maybe this is because I'll have to go to someone else. Maybe they come up with a different plan. Will that be okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Consult with Chuck.
He has been great. I can assure you, he had a big support. Thank you, Mr. Tironi.
Okay, so at this point, can I have a motion to continue to January 22nd?
I move to continue 23 Green Meadow to 29 Green Meadow to January 22nd,
Second.
2025.
I'll second that.
Mr. Talbot's in favor?
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Check a minor edit on the website is that it's listed as 23. Let me know.
Yes,
That's-
there's a typo. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you got me earlier with phase 5 cuttings.
Yeah.
Okay, violation notices, we already talked about 445, nothing else new on the others. Do we want to talk about 16 Beverly?
No, well, we can talk about that now. That's not a problem. 16 Beverly.
This is a potential minor plan change.
No, that's not. All right, on the board, so we approved this project, which has an order of conditions 2700772, was issued August 9th, 2023 at 16 Beverly Road. Through working with the building department and meeting their requirements for the building code on the deck, there appears to be a stainless steel chimney, and the deck could not be near the stainless steel chimney. There were two options that could take place. So the framing of the deck is orientated perpendicular to the house and will be secured to the concrete foundation. The foundation has two penetrations associated with the chimney. The anchoring needs to be a minimum per code 6 inches from the edge distance, and moving the framing to accommodate this requirement. So the framing has to shift over. He had an option to make it smaller or make it bigger. Making it smaller didn't seem to be appetizing. It's getting no closer to the wetland. The wetland is screen north.
Straight ahead.
Yeah. The other change is this retaining wall. He simply explains this retaining wall is this change, and the retaining wall is intended to reduce the amount of fill I would need to put behind the retaining wall. No other reason. It's exact same length, it's just the mirror image. These two changes, in my opinion, are insignificant to this project because there is a deck, there still is a deck. There's a retaining wall, there still is a retaining wall. Both are not getting closer to the wetland. And people who have gone out there understand that this is huge, like 10 or 12-foot drop off just beyond this, and then no work is happening in that area. So I would recommend a determination that's insignificant and move forward.
Did you have any idea why he's adding fill behind the wall? Was the area that was low enough, he's trying to level it off, or?
Yeah, I think again, this is someone with kids and he's trying to like make this flat area out, behind the wall.
Between the house and the garage, but this is not the existing giant retaining wall. This is a smaller retaining wall that he got permission to build in the yard. Right, the driveway runoff would run down towards the big tall retaining wall. And this
You
is-
see this retaining wall, we approved it.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. This existed.
Yeah.
And now he's just making this little,
Okay, I agree.
instead of going this way, he's going this way. It's not much of a
It's actually less close to the wetland now. Part of it, that little piece of it.
But certainly no negative impact, so.
Yeah, it looks to me like it's minor and insignificant, whatever the right term is.
It's an insignificant change. Can I have a vote to,
I move to consider this an insignificant change.
This is Tony. I second that.
great.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bill in favor. Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion item, Zero Net Lane. Chuck, you want to?
Zero Net Lane. So, Zero Net Lane is, a situation where we want to, I've been asking the applicant to provide information. Try to get a good picture to let you, see what's going on out there. Now, yes, and I have in mind to do this as quick as possible. Let's do this. Okay. All right. So during excavation, the site contractor smashed into no less than 15 trees. This is a typical tree damage on all 15 trees.
Did you say 1-5 or
Yeah.
5-0?
1-5.
Okay.
It might be 17. These are all trees that are around the perimeter of the house. And, you know, I said, get an arborist, have the arborist do an evaluation. Although I've talked to the arborist on the phone, he told me what he was going to do, but I had nothing in writing to bring to the commission. And I reached out last week when I sent out the agenda to these people, and I said, look, I have two issues. I asked you to get something from Lucas Environmental on where the wood chips were and how that destroyed the wetland and nothing was growing back. We never got that, and now we have this damage, and I don't have an evaluation from the arborist. And I said that I'm bringing it to the commission and asking what the next steps are. So we have this tree damage. A lot of apologies, you know, I don't understand why after hitting one tree, the contractor would hit, 14 more, and how the owner would think, I guess it wasn't there, but still, the house is going to be there and everyone's going to be looking at these trees that now are in question. So these are possible trees that could come down, of course, sooner than expected. So I wanted to bring it to the commission. I don't think talking is working anymore. Brian, you've been out there. Martha, you've been out there. You know who we're talking about. Nice guy, but it just maybe the nice policy that we have with communication and asking isn't.
So are you thinking of violation letter or off a scale?
Cease work order, is that an option?
All of it's an option. I mean, the building department would, but we don't want to do that. I think at this point, I would just go straight to the enforcement order, just write it up.
Yeah.
Ask for those two things by a certain date and ask them to come to the meeting on that certain date.
And would you put in the letter anything implying that there would be fines if they didn't?
Not at this point. No, I think that, so the enforcement order just lives, it's up to the commission, it's not reviewable. And so he doesn't come to the next meeting, he doesn't have the information,
Perhaps we
then
go another step.
you can amend it again.
Yeah.
So you just ratchet up that information, that's how those
Yeah,
enforcement
'cause
orders work.
that whole project has been filled with different apologies, so this is not the one thing that went wrong.
I'm wondering, at that next meeting, can we make some new conditions on that project that protect the
Oh.
root area and the trunks of those trees so they don't get further damaged?
Well, we could do it in the enforcement order.
Okay. Because,
We can't modify the OOC.
So this is the reason why, so there's ledge there. And so I guess they were just moving around. This is just a pile of stone. The pile of stones just got thrown up against the trees.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you would be surprised. One tree, yes, I get it. I guess I get it. Could happen. But all those trees to say, I don't even care. I'm just gonna get my work done and I'm not gonna think about anything.
And that's what the statement is. Statement is, I don't care, trees are just collateral damage.
Well, these are nice trees that would be around the house. I think
Not to him.
he's wrecking the appeal of the finished product.
I agree.
And he is compacting the soil under that giant pile of rocks. Just like the town forest cutting plan, we were worrying about.
Okay, so it's 20 past 10, so
Except it's in the work zone. So not dig it. So do I have permission for, okay.
do we need to vote on that?
Yes, please give me a vote to issue a enforcement order to zero.
Have a motion?
With the conditions we discussed. You can say so moved.
So moved.
Second,
Walter Talbot's in favor.
we need a second.
We need a second first.
So you want to second it first?
I thought I heard that.
No, that was Chuck asking for it.
We have a second. Walter Talbot's in favor then.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rainbow in favor.
Who was it who did the second?
Walter did.
Walter seconded, Martha moved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next on my list is, so we have the town forest committee here tonight, but we also want to, we understand that we issued a permit, but I want to also share that they're having a town meeting. They're gonna go to town meeting for 3 articles and the first one is off leash, which is Article 12. And it's on the board now. Any dog that does not remain under effective voice control as identified in 8813 must be placed on a leash, blah, blah, blah. And so I was gonna ask if the Conservation Commission would support that. I'm looking for the next one. I don't wanna.
That top one was the definition of voice control.
Okay,
So you want that one. There we go. Effective
11.
voice control.
shall be deemed under effective voice control if then the handler's sight, blah, 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 comes immediately when called. Handler's carrying a leash per dog. So this is what's voice control? And the next one is maximum number of off-leash dogs. And this is all in the town forest.
Did they go with 2 or 3 in the end?
It says 2 right there.
We went with 2.
Committee
Shall not exceed 2 per handler.
Okay. And then this number 13 is the one that we just approved. So they're seeking funds of 150,000, 50,000 for phase 4 of the dead tree removal and $100,000 for invasive plant control program. I'm asking the Conservation Commission to vote in support of these 3 articles or any such
Any combination.
combination as you
Permutation.
see fit.
I would like to move that we make one vote and support all 3 articles. And I would be glad to represent the committee at town meeting and tell them what our vote was.
And they will ask.
And can I get a second for that motion?
This is Tony, I second.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rainbow in favor. It is getting late. You're excused. Next one, land use summit rescheduled 2025. We sent out the email, asked people to look at the whole thing. Is that-
Yes, I've seen a number of responses. I didn't think about gathering them and coming up with a date, but I can plan to do that before the next meeting.
Okay.
But yes, lots of people have responded to that
Good.
from the various committees.
Anything else about that you want to cover, Chuck? No.
Not about that, just to get that, to vote, that's all I wanted.
So the next one then is MSMSF discussion and vote. We talked about that the last time. We did not vote on it.
Right. Yeah, so if you want to,
Change what we talked about, now's the time.
yeah, hold on a second.
Sorry, what was that?
So so we talked about it last time. We had some additions that were
Yeah.
suggested. We did not vote on it to make it official. So if we're going to change it, now is the time. If nobody changes it or with the changes, we need to vote on it.
Here they are right here. So this is our, below those highlighted areas are our standard boilerplate rules and regulations for all conservation land. But it was suggested by the engineering department and the planning department and supported by myself that we add to the Millet, Psalms and Morgan sign that we want to make one at each entrance. Open from dawn to dusk, all visitors must remain on marked paths. Carry in, carry out, no skating, swimming, or fishing.
We also talked about waiting, I thought.
I want to put waiting on there, I will. If you want to make a motion to include waiting, that would be fine.
What about dipping your toe in?
Yeah,
What? I was thinking some-
If we encourage people to wade, then there's gonna be erosion on the.
can you swim
sides.
without wading?
Banks. Protected.
I guess you could just,
Yeah. Dive in.
if that's what you want, just make that motion.
I just make it clear that we're really discouraging people from
Yeah, from using it.
using the water.
And then I want,
So I move to add waiting to item number 3.
Second,
Walter,
Walter's in favor.
Tony's Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rainbow in favor.
is there also a vote to accept these changes? No?
Because you
No.
didn't say as amended or anything, so.
That was just a change,
Okay,
number 3.
and it's only for Millet, Psalms and Morgan.
All right, so can
Propose that and I second.
Yeah.
we have a motion then to approve these rules?
I would like to have a discussion of one more item. Can I have that before or after the motion?
No,
Does it matter?
Should be before.
Before, okay. Speaking to people at the community forum the other night in the library, I heard from more than one person that they would really love to have a trash can there.
This has nothing to do with the trash barrel.
It says carry in, carry out.
Do you want,
Can we ask the DPW to provide a trash barrel?
Okay.
Okay, so,
At
I still don't think it has anything to do with the trash barrel, but it did the, but
yeah, there are two separate things. We should ask them for a barrel. We can ask them in our coordination meeting.
yeah.
But as far as the rules go, the way it's written covers the behavior we want.
That is no, everyone agrees. I mean, it's come up so much except for the engineering department. So I think at our meeting would be great.
Yeah.
But I did receive an email and we had 3 people comment last night and others commented to other people. And I think they all need to get that to the right people. And I would say the right people at this moment would be the select board. I mean, it's a select board of the town manager because it feels unusual to send them to the DPW and we can ask ourselves. I mean, we don't want to sick anyone on the DPW, but I think it's needed. I mean, I was out there and just underneath our sign
Yeah.
was dog waste bag.
So at least it was bagged, but it doesn't help that much. Those bags are compostable. It's not gonna last that
All right, should we, Molly, I don't know.
long. So
how-
having said that, can we have a motion to approve the rules?
Sure. I move that we approve the rules
Yeah, but-
as amended.
Hmm.
Walter has his hand up.
Sorry, Walter, I couldn't see you again. Go ahead.
My question was the trash barrel, which Martha addressed.
Okay, so we're all set. So back to the motion.
Second, this is Tony. I second Martha's motion.
Walter,
Mr. Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rainbow in favor. Okay, next is the Conservation Monthly Meeting, November 5th.
Isn't that election day?
Probably.
Yeah, I can't go on election day.
Okay,
So I believe I can.
okay.
I'm not gonna vote anyway. Who cares? No, that's fine.
Anybody else interested in going on, like, it's almost exciting as watching like a pancake cook.
Hey, Walter, you should come along since you're a retired individual and we can get a third person familiar with the entertainment value of it.
And you can ask for a trash barrel.
There you go.
He's not.
He's frozen. Okay, I won't put you on the spot. Don't worry about it, but it'll be nice.
It's possible I might be able to make it. I just can't commit.
We don't need to have three there. but-
Yeah.
Okay, next, any administrative report? Yes, Simon's Way update.
Yeah, Simon's Way, I was asked to just give a small report. I'm just gonna read this real quickly. Well, you may want me to send them the information. Wilcox and Barton will be conducting the site investigating program on Wednesday, October 23rd. That's when it starts, today, for the town of Reading. For the proposed Center for Active Living. The site investigation includes 5 geoprobes, track-mounted boring locations, pushed to approximately 25 feet below ground, and 10 hand-augered locations 1 foot below ground. The plan's been attached, the wetlands and the delineation markers and where the borings are going to be. Wilcox and Barton Incorporated will not need to clear any trees or conduct any site investigation program to conduct this site investigation program. Yeah, so they're just gonna say Weston and Sampson conducted the same investigation back in 2022, and they will be going down the same path that was utilized by Weston and Sampson. So the trees, they picked a path that didn't include any trees, maybe some shrubs were on over. So this is where we're talking about Simon's Way. This is the access road to the gun club, and they're going to do some site investigation. They've mentioned things in here which are kind of funny, like you know, abandoned cars, Coke machine, things like that. So they've walked the site. They understand what's going on out there. The report should be available the beginning of November, and we'll have a copy of that report. You're probably interested in that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have. I'm not sure this is on the website, but it may be. If it's not, I can either send it out to you guys and put it on the website.
Do you know when they're planning to actually do the test hole digging?
It started today, and if they're not finished tomorrow, then it'll go to Friday also. I mean, the 10 hand augers are definitely done.
Okay, what's that?
Yes,
Did the information I sent to you get forwarded?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I know what happened with it or what, you know, send it to the engineering department or more in charge?
Yeah.
Okay, so getting to minutes for approval. The first one is 9/11. I did that one. I sent it out too late, so we won't even talk about that one. Next one is 9/25. Is everybody in a position to approve that?
I don't think I read that one. I don't
Oh,
remember.
so we couldn't approve it anyway,
If we got
one
it.
person. So what about 10/9? Would be the last meeting.
Again, I don't have any memory of reading any minutes since our last
I
meeting.
don't either.
All right, we'll push those to the next meeting.
Send my comments in.
Not enough to review. Yeah, you got
I'm trying to remember who we even took last meeting. Let's go back and look.
If only we had the minutes, we could.
Okay,
could look back.
And I will volunteer to write up the minutes
I
for
was
this
hoping you
meeting.
would. We take,
Yeah, I've been taking a lot of notes, so.
okay,
the public information or public comment, what is that called? Public. Anyways, I want to let everybody know who my service announcement. Anyone in town that would like to do the minutes for the Conservation Commission, please reach out to the Conservation Administrator, myself, at Town Hall. We have a budget to pay for our minutes, and we are looking for people to do those minutes.
Okay. Having said that, are we ready to adjourn? If so, can I have a motion?
I move
What's
to.
the-
adjourn the
What,
meeting.
what's the dollar amount?
I think it depends on who volunteers.
Yeah.
To be
So-
negotiated?
We can set the dollar amount. I think it can be up to, well, I think it's either a dollar amount or it's per meeting, okay? So I think that's gonna be part of the negotiation. Okay,
Pass it along. Thank you.
are you looking for work?
No, I'm retired, remember? Ask Brian.
Doesn't mean you're.
That means you have time.
You haven't got the itch. I don't know.
Okay,
No,
so,
it means I'm retired is what it means.
so can you repeat your motion?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
All in
Oh,
favor?
Second.
And it is 10:35.
Wow.
Ooh, just like old times.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.